Councilors, please take your seats. Councilors, please take your seats. I'd like to call to order the December 20th, 2018 meeting of the Barnstable Town Council. Please note that tonight's meeting is recorded and broadcast on Channel 18, and that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Seeing none, please silence your devices. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call?
Councilors: Biedenbender.
Here.
Crocker.
Here.
Cullum.
Here.
Dagwan. Flores.
Here.
Rapp Grissetti. Here. Hebert.
Present.
Levesque.
Here.
Neary. He's here too, Schnepp.
Here.
Steinhilber.
Here.
Tinsley. Wallace.
Here.
Okay, and Deborah's now here, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. This is the time where we have public comment, but I want to set some ground rules right out of the gate. I can see that there are members from the Hyannis Historic Waterfront District in attendance. So I just want to start by saying that unfortunately, time and time again, this committee has proven itself to be one of the most dysfunctional and unprofessional committees that we have in town. We have received a number of comments, letters, numerous emails. Email trains go back, over a year. So there's two things that I'm not going to entertain comments on tonight. One, there seems to be this misconception that the committee thinks it can decide who it appoints to their committee or who's a full member or who's an alternate member. That is false. So we'll just end that narrative tonight. A point of power rests solely with the council after vetting by the appointments committee. So we won't have any comments on that tonight. Secondly, and most important, we've all seen the accusations flying around, and we're all well aware of the infighting going on within the committee. And this is not a venue, and I'm not going to allow any type of attacks, personal attacks in here, accusations, founded or unfounded. So I'm not going to entertain any comments one way or another on those either. If you can't follow the ground rules and you continue and come up to the podium and try to speak to those, I'm going to shut you down. And if you continue, I'm going to ask you to leave. And if you continue on, I'm going to have you removed. It's Christmas, so I'm being nice tonight. So with those rules in place, let's see if everyone can act like an adult. So if you're here to speak on topics besides those two, feel free to step forward. You get 3 minutes. Anyone?
Good evening. Hello. My name is Laura Kelly. I reside in North Eastham. I'm here this evening to ask to be on your agenda in January. Topic being, it's unfortunate, I have proof of harm to humans as well as bees that glyphosate, which is an active ingredient in Roundup, but many other herbicides, is harmful. I've got studies to show this. And I'm going through all 15 towns. My request is to have towns not use glyphosate products, to voluntarily not use glyphosate products, we can't ban things, okay? But we can voluntarily not use said products on any town-owned land. Taking it a step further to schools, cemeteries, rights of way, power lines, things like this that we need to protect our next generations. These studies just came out this summer and this fall. I will give these to you electronically. And the second ask is for the counselors to give again, I'll give this all to you electronically. It's a management regulation for the town of Marblehead since 2005 has been working. So if we could take a step further and create a town policy, this goes to your Board of Health. This is at your Board of Health level. So if this board could highly recommend that you suggest they write something and use this as a guideline so your town can shift and alter as it wishes. And then send this to your residents and your businesses. That this town is moving forward to protect its citizens on ABCD places and ABCD directions. It's about furthering the outreach. These studies are out, but who knows? Who knows about them? So I'm hoping more communication is being given and that we can work together. I'd like to give a presentation on your nearest agenda. And again, my name is Laura Kelly. I'm the president of POCA-CapeCod.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, good evening. My name is David Dumont, resident of the town. Just want to say Merry Christmas to you all and a Happy New Year. And I think that work that you have done in the past and in the present is excellent. And I just want to thank you all for your service here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
My name is Luann Conroy. Good evening. I live in West Barnstable. I made a phone call to Phil Wallace about this. So I'm here to support Laura Kelly in what she's asking of the town council. I'm a biologist and a teacher, and it's been years and years that I've been aware of what Roundup does to humans at the cellular level, as well as other organisms that share this landscape. It's a real concern for me, and the studies are out there. And I'm asking the town council members to really take this seriously and to consider and then act on making a ban of this chemical on town-owned properties and really be a model for homeowners as well. The amount of chemicals that are put on this spit of land that we call home, with the aquifer so close to the surface, I really ask you to really consider that this is a chance for us to really make a difference. The effects are especially noticeable in children, and I'm certainly, some of the studies you'll read about, if you read them, at the molecular level, at the cellular level of insects, we share the same enzymes, we share the same cellular processes. So again, I hope you consider this and put Laura on your agenda, next agenda. I just wanted to pass this out.
You can hand it to the clerk, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Taryn Dobin, Marston's Mills. Are we signing in?
I'm the only one to do it.
Good evening. I don't really think it's necessary to admonish us on the HHDC like children. We've had a lot of trouble. Serving as acting chair at times, I have reached out to many of you. I want to thank those of you who did take the time to talk to me about this recent problem. But we have never seen a council liaison. We're volunteers. We have people who don't know the intricacies of the law, and we need help. We don't need scolding like school children, okay? And there are a lot of things going on that we simply don't understand. We're not lawyers, we're volunteers. I've been on this board 5 years. I've never once seen my council liaison. I came back early from a knee replacement surgery. I took calls on a big matter when I was in Ohio, burying my brother last year. You know, I volunteered my time, and I care about the things that I'm doing. I'm a citizen of this town. I love this town. So rather than scold, tell us what we can and cannot say. Help us. I've never seen our town council liaison, 5 years. Could we start there? Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Council response to public comment, I do want to let everyone know that the DPW, the airport, and the schools do not use Roundup on town property. Anyone else? All right, we're going to move on to town manager communications. Yep. Oh, sorry. Councilor Rep Cassetti.
I just want to thank Mr. Dumont. I guess he left, but I want to thank him for his service because he volunteers on a board. And I hope going forward that the appointments to the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District can help to do some healing on that committee. So that's my hope.
Councilor Schnapp.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to mention to Ms. Kelly and Ms. Conway that emerging contaminants is a very important issue to our town. Our town manager has taken a lot of leadership on this issue, and I think that in the new year it would be a great idea for us to either workshop or have some additional input on that issue. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilor Dagwan.
Yes, I don't know Mrs. Conway, but I do know Kelly. And Kelly has been here several times and has really been very informative for us in terms of how Eversource was spraying along the power lines and contaminating a lot of the underbrush in those areas. And so I'm glad that she's still fighting for us and for our environment here, and that she's continues to come in and share those kinds of concerns that others in the community have as well. And I hope that in the future we'll be able to get you somewhere on the agenda to come in and speak to this matter. And I just want to thank Ms. Conway, too, for coming in and sharing that. And Mr. Dumont for saying something nice about the council. We don't get that often. Most of the time we're being criticized, and he came in and said something positive. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just think in the follow-up to Laura and to Luann, because of the URI study that's here in the Cape, as well as the Silent Spring, I think we have some good partners in this effort. But my concern is, God bless you, my concern is that it seems like they're focused only on the wells and not on the terrain as such and the water. So I think we should work with them also in partnership and some collaboration and see if they can expand that to look at some of these other areas. So thank you very much.
Any other councilors? All right. Now we'll move on to Town Manager Communications. Town Manager Mark Ellis.
thought he was going to come up and speak for me. Good evening, Mark Ells, Town Manager, and happy holidays to everyone. Before I get into my Town Manager update, just to reinforce the Town Council President's statement, and so that the public and those who came to speak on this issue are aware, we instituted a policy for the use of organic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides over a decade ago in Barnstable. And it was because we understand how fragile our environment is, and we understand that everything that we do on the surface can impact the surface, and it can impact our surrounding resources, both below and beyond. So that's been in place for quite a while. I've talked directly with the coordination with our president, to our facilities manager at our schools, golf courses, DPW, and airports. So just know that that's in place. That doesn't mean that we stop there, but certainly that's a standing policy, and hopefully it's made a difference. And I know that it's been challenging at times to find products that will address the level of service that our public wants, because I think applying chemicals at times can make things happen more quickly. But that's kind of a short-term view of what we're trying to, the outcome that we truly want. So, and we recognize that. Secondly, I thought it was important to give our town clerk a minute, because it was brought to my attention that there's a hearing coming up Monday, January 7th, 9:30 a.m. regarding 2019 seasonal population increase estimation for seasonal retail goods package store licenses. This is something that Director Scally brought to my attention. There has been a change, and so I would like our town clerk to share with us that change, and then I'd like you all to know that that hearing is coming up Monday, January 7th at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. I was asked what the population change is for the summer months here on the Cape, and the numbers come to us by use of how many hotel rooms do we have, how many motel rooms do we have, how many B&Bs, how many, and now we have AirBob, we have all kinds of things, and we have folks that rent their houses out. So basically, looking at the town of Barnstable, because of the size of the town of Barnstable to start with, and the number of spaces that we have available for people to stay on Cape Cod, our numbers increased from 45,193 year-round residents to about 145,193 summer residents. And that is taken from the rooms, all the information that comes through pretty much the Chamber of Commerce. But also, we now have trains as well as buses and boats and cars. There's all kinds of ways to come to the Cape, and they can be day trippers or they can be staying overnight. And in Hyannis, we have the added impetus for people to come in because of the train, and then they can grab a boat and go over to one of the islands and stay or not stay and stay with us. And so we do expand quite a bit, and I think you all notice that in the summertime when you're trying to drive on a rainy day. And that's where those numbers come from for us. Every town expands in the summertime, but Barnstable, just due to the size, expands the most. And pretty much it's concentrated in the village of Hyannis. If you look around your villages, you know, where were most of the hotel rooms and the motel rooms and things like that? So pretty much it's concentrated within the village of Hyannis. And this is something that they wanted to look at to decide whether or not you could have seasonal liquor licenses and things like that. I'm not sure where it's going to go on that particular day for the meeting, but that's where it's coming from.
Thank you. Do anybody have any questions or turn it over to you, Mr. President, on that
Councilor
particular
Hebert?
issue?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mr. President. When you say, and that it's 145,000, does that fluctuate much from, let's say, July, August, and September? Is it kind of steady per month?
It actually, the numbers really climb the first week of July. Before the kids are out of school, we have varying up and down, up and down, up and down. Sometimes the families come down, but starting the first week of July, July 4th, it just pretty much solid for July and August. It tapers right off again at the end of August.
So 30,000 would leave this week, but another 30,000 would come in, so it stays pretty regular.
Well, it does, because, we have the turnover days here.
Yep.
So all those turnover days, it's churning, but the people are coming in and the people are going out. It's pretty constant.
Thank you for that good work.
Councilor Cullen?
Yes, what is a seasonal license? Is that April 1st to November 1st or September 1st? Like, what is the span of that?
What I can do is ask Director Scally to come in for your first meeting in January, if you would like, so that you can be briefed on it. I'll have him as part of my communication. Yes.
Councilor Schnapp?
Thank you. How is the second homeowner population figured in that number?
That's a toughie for anybody to figure out, except that in the towns now, each town is keeping track of that. So I didn't go directly to the towns, but we have kind of a picture of how many people have requested to be able to rent their houses out for the summer, and or as a second home, or to, a lot of people buy a second home. They don't live in it, they rent it for the summer. So in order to rent it for the summer, they have to go through the Board of Health and all those other places.
But I imagine we have a lot of second homeowners that just stay here with family, and do we tabulate that in any, or estimate that?
I don't have any way of estimating that, only if they rent it out.
Councilor Flores?
Actually, Councilor Cullen asked one of the questions I was interested in. But more importantly, that 145,000, do we consider that just the primary summer months of July and August, or also the shoulder seasons? Just
July and August.
July and August. Thank you.
Councilor Dagwan?
Yes, could you have Mr. Scally also, or someone, let us know about the number of B&Bs? How many do we have, people that are actually using their homes for B&Bs? I'm interested in that.
Councilor Cullen?
And when you ask Director Scally that, if you could also ask him to calculate the number of, like, what the license dates are, if it's April 1st to November 1st, and what those months look like for population too. Because if you only have 90 days of 145,000 people, it may not be worth it if it's a 6-month license, right?
I can read you the public hearing notice.
Okay.
That might answer the beginnings of questions, but certainly to go in depth here, I would much rather have Director Scally here. I've already told you, it's under Mass General Law 138, Section 17, whereas the authority may consider the 2019 seasonal population increase estimation for the purposes of considering the issuance of a seasonal all alcohol and wine and malt package store licenses for April 1st to November 30th, or from April 1st to January 15th. So those are the dates. So he would be better to be able to go into detail and answer questions.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Mark?
Thank you for allowing me to take some things out of order here. We're proceeding with our budget action calendar for 2020. We've begun our meetings with each department relevant to capital improvement program, and we'll continue to progress, and meet the deadlines that we've shared with you in our budget action calendar. We have a scheduled progress meeting for January 7th with Fish and Wildlife to discuss the future potential to siting water supply wells on 250-acre parcel owned by the Commonwealth that directly abuts the Hyannis Public Water Supply, and we'll keep you advised. We are cautious going into this meeting. We have had communications with them, and we have some concern that they are adding conditions to us being able to utilize their property outside of their typical authority. And we are in communications with both the Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife and DEP. Typically, the community works with DEP to establish this, and you don't have another agency that intervenes and imposes requirements that go beyond what we would typically see in regulation. We are beginning to have those communications. So we're going to put together the strategy that lays out. We've actually gone significantly into this at this point as far as a technical evaluation that would be done once we had already received authorization to do that level of study. So we're well into evaluating whether or not this parcel can technically, or I'm sorry, from a quantity standpoint, handle public water supply wells, and we would have to do additional quality as we move forward. So we're going to go into the 7th, but I am in communication with our leadership, and I am in communication with the heads at the state level so that we can expeditiously continue to proceed with this. So a little caution here, and I just want to make sure that you all are aware that we're at an important point in these discussions. On November 27th at 3 p.m., I attended the Board of Health meeting to further discuss the proposal to eliminate or modify the interim estuaries regulation. The next hearing is on January 22nd, 2019. I had a lot of questions, both from our community and other communities relevant to this effort. I've been, sharing all and any information we have. We are doing additional work relevant to quantifying the work that has been done and continues to be done so that we can share that both with Board of Health, our public, and anybody else who may be interested. And we will continue that discussion on the 22nd. Town of Barnstable will go forward with its new website first week of January. You may even see it a little sooner than that, but I want to make sure that our staff is here. This is, in between Christmas or right before New Year sometimes. I don't want to be short-staffed if we hit some bugs in our new website, but you may very well see it by the 1st going up. We're also going to leave a link to the old website for a period of time, because if somebody gets into the news website and can't figure out how they used to find the things they did in the old website, we want to be able to just click into that. But it doesn't make sense to run the two for too long in parallel. But we will do that for some period of time. Before we take the old website down, I will let everybody know that we're going to do that. But we encourage you all to take a look at it and provide us comment. Vineyard Wind has communicated with us that draft federal reports and final state reports are on their website. I've provided you the links in this, and I've given this to Lynn Poyant so that she can help us better communicate to all those who may want to click into this and take a look at their reports. They also provided us a schedule of their public meetings, so I've given you that link as well, and we'll provide that to our public. There is a meeting planned in Hyannis on Tuesday, January 15th, 2019 at the Doubletree Hotel, Cape Cod Room from 5 to 8. And it involves a presentation and question and answer period that begins at 6 p.m. So it starts at 5, but presentation begins at 6. There's also a forum planned at Town Hall on March 12th, and I'll provide you more details on that as the information becomes available. It's an evening meeting here in this room. I want to be able to record it so that we can also share subsequent viewings with our public. or people can just link in at their leisure and take a look at where they are in this project. I've also been informed that they have reached out to our villages, and if you would like them to come and you haven't heard from them, please let me know that, and I'll give you a direct contact so that you can schedule them. And I know they've been in touch with 2 of our counselors and have made themselves available to come to village association or other meetings with resident groups that may have concerns. But this is progressing. There was also a recent article that they received another lease area, or at least a preliminary finding relevant to another lease area, but it's not phase 2 that we had talked about. It's just additional area that they may be moving forward with additional wind turbines within. I talked to Nate Mayo today about that, so there's some different information online. People have asked a few questions. That concludes my manager's update. I do have Katie Service following me to give you an update on the RFP that was issued relevant to Cape Town Plaza, but if you have any questions about my section, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for the town manager? All right, good
Thank
job.
you.
You covered it all.
That's good.
Thanks, Mark. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you very much. And thank you, President, Vice President, and councilors for having me here today. I think I have to start my try to keep it quick. As you know, Cape Town Plaza is development and award was made just recently by the Airport Commission. As you know, again, we're an enterprise fund of the town. We need to operate with full cost recovery. And you are also aware of our dwindling operating budget. Over the past several years, we've seen it decline significantly so. And aviation in general has declined nationwide, not only for our airport, but nationwide. So we've seen some really fluctuations in our operating budget through the years. Because of those fluctuations in the aviation market and the aviation sector, we really need to find other ways to diversify our airport revenue stream that's not central around revenue generated from aviation. Cape Town Plaza allows us to do that. Cape Town Plaza is a 26-acre parcel that is owned by the town, but it was left in the management of the airport. So it must stay with the airport, and it gives the airport an opportunity to produce revenue that's not so tied to fluctuations in aviation. So the first thing I really want to do is I want to thank the town truly from the bottom of my heart. Town leadership has really assisted the airport in getting to this point of developing this RFP. We've had a lot of sessions with the Chief Procurement Officer, Town Legal, with Finance Department, Planning and Development. Everyone really came together to make this happen. And so I truly, truly appreciate all of the work and the hard work that went in to get us to this point. So an RFP was developed. It went out on April 26th and requesting a new ground lease for the property. We looked for the highest and best use for that property, consistent with development plans, not only for the airport, but for the town as well. 2 proposals were received from Wilder and from WNS Development. On December 11th, the Airport Commission approved of the recommendation made by the Chief Procurement Officer for WNS Development to be the developer of that parcel. They were deemed the most highly advantageous firm with the highest and best use for the property. They would like to call the property the Landing at Hyannis, which I think is a great name for that parcel. They had a very, very strong technical proposal. They had a very fresh look at how they could develop that parcel and some really great ideas for the parcel. They identified local partners that they would be working with going into the future. They emphasized that they maintain a holding on their business properties and they maintain the majority of their holdings, which was pleasing for us to see that we would be consistently staying with the same firm. And they proposed a very highly favorable financial package to the airport. So this is just some quick facts. The upper left-hand corner has a pie chart that shows the revenues and the breakout of the revenues for the airport, with jet fuel sales being our highest revenue income at 65% of our revenues. The next highest, or the second highest revenue generator for the airport is at about 9% of the budget, and that's our land leases. One of the things that I said in earlier slides was that we need to seek alternative or non-aviation revenue sources, and we can do this through our land leases. We have a number of other parcels at the airport that we can look at leasing out, and looking at other commercial uses for those as well. The existing Cape Town Plaza ground lease, the airport makes about $70,000 annually for that. It was a lease that was signed in 1968. It was a long lease, but the new lease, the landing at Hyannis, they're looking at $1 million for the first year for that first lease payment, and that's really consistent with fair market value. We had an appraisal that was done as well. That $1 million will increase annually by 3%. So years 2020 through 2025, you'll see a 3% increase to that $1 million. And over the life of the lease, starting with year 2026, it begins at about $1.45 million to the end of the lease at about 5.7 annually. That includes 3% annual increases, plus a percentage of gross revenues, and look-backs every 10 years to make sure that we are still consistent with fair market value. What that means for us is that the proposal increases $70,000, which is basically 1% of our revenue budget, to about $1 million, which is roughly about 15% of an increase, or 15% of the revenue that we would be receiving from that property. That's significant for us. What it does for the airport, it allows the enterprise fund to exist without having to access the general fund for its operating. And that's key for us. We need to make sure that we're always diversifying our revenue stream so that we never are dipping into the general fund. We do not want to do that. And this property, and this lease, and this proposal allows us to do that. Additionally, although not detailed significantly so in the proposal, it will take into account new growth that the town will foresee. Tax revenues with the town, the fire districts, Community Preservation Act, and this could be in excess of $200,000 annually. So I think all in all, the parcel is a win-win for both the town and the airport. It will revitalize that sector of 132. It will reintroduce hopefully some different types of retail development that will bring some excitement to the area. So with that, that's my update, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate the update and all the work that you've done to get this over the finish line here too. It's been many years in the making, but definitely the last year and a half. I know we worked pretty extensively together, as with town manager, the assistant town manager, and staff, and the airport commission. So I really appreciate the work that the airport leadership has put into this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Cullum?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It's very exciting to be thinking about what can be at that property and the asset that it can actually perform for you at the airport instead of sitting there blighted and looking terrible. It's very exciting. And it's been years in the making, as the president said. I have some concerns about what's going to happen to Main Street. And I realize the rising tide raises all boats, and I think everybody's on board with that, and I'm really excited about that parcel being developed. But I guess I'd just like to ask the town to devote some extra time and energy into marketing Main Street and our local merchants. I think it's really important, and we've been working for years on that. So that would be my one request. Maybe somebody could speak to that now. I don't know if you have a plan for that or not, but I'd like to hear it in the future.
You want to say something, Mark?
Good evening, Mark Ellis, Town Manager. Yes, we are looking at everything from rebranding who we are. We've certainly been spending a lot of time internally in the organization focusing on customer service and creating a balanced environment for our residents, visitors, and businesses. We had a meeting, I was at a meeting as recent as yesterday afternoon with business owners from Main Street, that were restaurants, hotels. It wasn't just Main Street, it was Hyannis. And they're looking at how we can create the image that, so truly will represent who we are here and communicate it out so that we can increase rooms and we can increase hotel, motel, meals, sales and taxes, so that we all benefit. And we are discussing, they have made an ask of us through the Greater Hyannis Chamber of Commerce to look at supporting that marketing and the development of that image and all of us sharing that image in a common way. So, yeah, there's attention now on it. I expect it will continue. And I also have asked any and all to feel free to contact me directly, especially if they see stuff that they have concern about. And I know many of them do, but most people actually say to me that they're sorry that they have to call me. And I say, well, why? That's what I'm there for. So please, that's an honest request, and feel free to reach out to me as we move forward with this project. And this is only the beginning. We've got a lot more to come. So, I think by the time we're done, we're going to get to the outcomes that we all want.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Katie.
Thank you very
Sorry,
much.
Vice President Crocker had a question.
I agree, Phil. It's really something. I was fortunate to be involved early, and the thing I want to bring forward is the way that you personally took it on yourself to listen to this council about the need to look at outside the fence to improve your situation. Everybody talks about you being a freestanding unit, but the backstop for you is the town of Barnstable. So when your reserves are down, you're going to come over to our side and ask and ask and ask. So we had some honest discussions which started this whole process. And I was in early, and I had a chance to watch the way this all comes together. And I was really taken that we had such resistance when we first offered the idea of leasing the lease. And this is after much discussion. This was after filibustering by certain people in certain positions. This is after all kinds of activity that had been floated around this council and councils before this for a number of years. So we thought, well, gee, if we can get you on track and make that happen, that wouldn't this be wonderful? But that was faced with a ton of resistance. And I have to say, if it wasn't for your effort, for Mark Els and for Andy Claiborne agreeing to go sit with FAA and tell them how the lease works, then we never would have continued to keep marching down the street. So I'm very grateful for you for agreeing that the town had an idea that had to have its day, had to be heard. I'm very grateful for what Mark allowed Andy to do for us, because Andy was instrumental as well in the FAA hearing. And that is how we advanced this ball. This didn't happen by accident. This didn't come honestly, originally, out of your committee. This came by a cooperative effort of this town, this administration, and you. And I will never forget the time you put in to make sure it at least had a fair hearing. And now look at it. Here we are looking like heroes, aren't we?
Thank you. Well, it
Thank
takes a
you.
team.
Thank you. It's a team.
Thank you very much.
Great job, Katie. Thank you. All right, Vice President Crocker, could you please act on the minutes of December 6th, please?
Yes, Mr. President, in our packets tonight, we have the Town Council meeting minutes of December 6th, 2018, and I rise to bring them into the record.
Do I have a second? Okay, I have a second. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from December 6th, 2018? That is unanimous. All right, any council announcements or communications? No? All right, moving right along. We're going to go into our presentation we have tonight then. We have Maggie Downey from the Cape Light Compact. Come on up. Welcome. Just make sure the green light's on when you're ready there. David, good to see you.
Good evening to all of the counselors here this evening. Since 2006, I've had the privilege to represent the three categories of electric customers that live and work in the town of Barnstable: residential, commercial, and governmental. I took over for former town councilor Audrey Loughnane, who had sat on the board from its inception in the late 90s. And I've had the recent honor of being secretary to the Cape Light Compact. The Cape Light Compact itself has a number of different things that it does. Perhaps it's best known for its power supply, because that's what most people see, but hopefully they also are aware of the energy efficiency element. And the energy efficiency program over the past decade has really ramped up, and there's been a lot of great work that has been done. And we are at a milestone now as we're about to embark on the next 3-year plan. So we have Maggie Downey, the director, and Margaret Song, one of the principal mover and shakers for the Cape Light Compact, staff member who really gets it done over there. So they are here to do what they have done at all of the different towns on Cape, to present to you a synopsis of the 3-year energy efficiency plan that we're about to enter into. So this is part of that public outreach as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Maggie, and she can proceed.
Great, thank you. And welcome again.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having us here. Nice to see everyone. Again, my name is Maggie Downey. I'm the administrator of the Cape Light Compact, and David gave me a great introduction. Thank you for that, David. It's wonderful to have the support of the towns and the consistency of having David's experience. Just to plug, he's also participated and assisted me on all of our competitive procurements for power supply. So it's been very helpful to bring in another set of eyes, especially with his background in procurement. So I'm here tonight to, as David said, to give you an very brief overview of the Cape Light Compact, but really to talk about the 19 to 21 3-year energy efficiency plan. I'm going to let Margaret talk about the enhancements, so I don't have to drone on forever and ever, and just remind you of what we're doing and answer any questions that you might have about the energy efficiency programs offered by the compact or in the compact in general. So this is, believe it or not, the 4th 3-year plan that has been filed by the Cape Light Compact with the Department of Public Utilities. I'm going to use a term we're all called program administrators, or PAs. The Cape Light Compact and then the 7 investor-owned utilities are collectively called program administrators under the legislation. So the compact, for those of you who might not know or in the audience, consists of the 21 towns on the Cape and Vineyard, 15 Cape Cod towns, 6 Martha's Vineyard towns, and we were formed, or a creature of the 1997 Restructuring Act. And we have 3 primary functions: administering the energy efficiency programs, negotiating a power supply contract for customers on an opt-out basis, and also advocating for consumers. I think I was here talking last year about grid modernization and the recent Eversource rate case. We're also a model for other community aggregation programs, not only in Massachusetts, but nationally. There are about 170, a little over 170 towns in the state of Massachusetts are now our municipal aggregators. We are the only 21 that actually administer the energy efficiency programs, but several towns have also exploring or considering doing what the Cape Light Compact towns do relative to energy efficiency. So the landscape has changed. We're no longer just an outlier. We're becoming a much larger group of cities and towns pursuing this policy. So just some background. We began administering the energy efficiency programs in 2001. They were very small, about a $5 million budget. And our landscape and how we run these programs changed significantly with the passage of the Green Communities Act in 2008. It did 2 things. It mandated that we pursue all effective energy efficiency and demand response that are cheaper than supply. Statistically, it is cheaper to invest to not use a kilowatt hour than to pursue new infrastructure, build new poles and wires, or power plants. So it's cheaper to conserve energy than to build the infrastructure for growing needs. And then what demand is you have to build the infrastructure for that peak
for us, it's our peak summer day. I heard somebody, the clerk, talking about the summer. That's when we use the most electricity on the Cape and Vineyard. So what we're trying to do through our demand response program is to shave that peak, to lower the peak so that you don't have to, it's only a few hours, so that you don't have to build your infrastructure to meet that peak need. So the 2008 Green Communities Act is what set the stage for filing 3-year plans. It sets the stage for a statewide plan and also a significant investment in our money, ratepayers. We pay for these funds on an electric bill every month in larger budgets and larger programs. And we were filing these plans and uneventfully until 2018, when the legislature adopted several amendments to the Green Communities Act. And I wanted to bring these to your attention because some of the enhancement that Margaret's going to talk about are related to these enhancements. So in the legislature this August passed a law and then signed by the governor to do 2 things: explicitly allow for cost-effective energy storage and other active demand management technologies. So this will allow the compact and the utilities to use our energy efficiency funds for storage, for battery storage, for small businesses, homes, and even potentially on a large scale. Demand reduction also is setback thermostats and some other smart technologies, but it really introduced and the ability to use energy efficiency funds for storage. It also adds a terminology in the law called strategic electrification. And what this is the legislature, in order to meet their Global Warming Solution Act goals, is looking to, I know it's kind of a swing from where we were, to electrify parts of our grid for home heating, move customers off of oil and propane onto more efficient, high cold climate heat pumps and electrifying that. But when you electrify the grid, you also need to bring in other sources of energy. That's the offshore wind projects, that's the Canadian hydro projects that the Commonwealth is trying to negotiate. So as we electrify the grid, they're trying to green the grid as well. So this is a mandate for the Cape Light Compact as well as the other utilities to address strategic, cost-effective strategic electrification. And we're proposing to do that through heat pumps for certain fuel sources. It also explicitly authorizes renewable energy funds through EE. The details on that we're still working out with the Department of Public Utilities, but again, very new language in the law. And then the final thing, and we'll talk about it at the sector level in a second, it changes the cost effectiveness requirements from a program level to a sector level. So what does that mean? Everything the Cape Light Compact does has to be cost effective. And for every dollar of ratepayer funds invested, we have to get at least $1 in benefits back. That's what the Department of Public Utilities, when we file our plan, will go through all of our budgets, through all of our programs to make sure that everything we're doing is cost effective. It was previously at a program level. The legislature moved it up to a sector. We only have 3 sectors. We have a residential, a commercial sector, and a low-income sector. So by raising things to the sector level, it expanded the ability to do programs that might have been marginal, or a measure that might have been marginal gets rolled up. Again, these were unexpected changes. We weren't aware that they were happening, but it was passed into a law. We met with the Department of Energy Resources, the Attorney General's office, as to what we were supposed to do with these new updates, and the direction that we received is your plan should include programs that address the changes in law. So we worked collaboratively with the 7 other investor-owned utilities to put forward a statewide plan under the brand known as Mass Save. Mass Save is actually the Cape Light Compact and all of the investor-owned utilities. So we started our planning for this in November of 2017. We held a series of stakeholder meetings that ran all the way through February. We filed our first draft of this energy efficiency plan in April, and then a second draft, which we were required to include the changes to law in our September version, and then an October 10th filing of tables. This all culminates in an official legal filing with the Department of Public Utilities on October 31st. We just ended a series of 2 weeks of adjudicated proceedings where we had hearings, we were cross-examined very specifically on the Cape Light Compact's programs, our budgets, the cost effectiveness, what were being proposed. The department now has this under advisement, the department being the Department of Public Utilities, and they are required by statute to issue an order on the plan by January 31st. So what does that mean? They will review the budget. They could remove some of the enhancements. They'll either remove, approve, or condition the things that we're going to talk about shortly. So this is what I was referring to. I don't want to get into bore you with all the details, but you can see the sectors: residential, income eligible, low income, and commercial and industrial. Prior to the law just changing, we had to be cost effective at a program level, and the legislature now moved that to a sector level. And then underneath programs, you have initiatives, an initiative such as retail products and services or homes and renovations. Many of you hopefully have participated in some of these programs. I know the town has, actively works with the Cape Light Compact on the commercial and industrial programs. So now I'm going to turn it over to Margaret to talk about the CLC-specific program enhancements.
So good evening. My name is Margaret Song, as Maggie said, and I get the exciting part because these are all the extra things. And one of the reasons why we want to present this in front of you all and in front of the televised audience is because it is constantly shocking to us that people do not know what is available to them and how we can hopefully help you keep some of the folks living in your town. So one of the things that we have proposed to continue is 100% with no cap for insulation measures for year-round renters. I actually rented a property in Osterville for 5 years. I could open up my outlet, put a penny down, and you could hear it clink on the bottom. Those gas bills were incredible. It was actually one of the things that inspired us to actually put something like this here because you have quite a few year-round rental properties here in the town of Barnstable. So that is something that we're proposing to continue. We are also proposing to continue serving those natural gas heated customers so that they can be served by the compact or by National Grid. The customer would have the choice. This slide I think is really helpful. It's a little hard to read because it's a little small, but you know, when we say income eligible, people often think that that must be a very, very, very low bar. For a family of 4, which is not uncommon here, that's up to $68,289. That is not out of the realm of possibility for many of the people who live here. So if you are at that level, we highly encourage you to take advantage of all the discounts you can take on your bills, as well as through our programs. Further, on the second box, which is bluish colored, we offer 100% for insulation for these customers as well. So if you're up to $91,052 for a family of 4, which again is very much in the realm of possibility for many of your constituents, we want them to call us, we want them to participate, we want them to start saving. One of the things that we're looking to help customers do is understand a little bit more about what's going on in your home. And so one of the things that we will be testing in this 3-year plan are home energy monitoring reports. Some of you may already get them through National Grid. Rest assured, what we are going to try and do is right-size it so that you're not being compared to neighbors that don't live there. We're going to be looking to compare you to people who actually do. I see some nodding heads. This is one thing that we're actually very excited about, and if you know Maggie Downey, you know she loves heat pumps. So one of the things that we really see is that for oil, electric heat, propane customers particularly, there is no really very efficient option. You know, there's just a limit of opportunities. And so actually you'll see that many of our HVAC contractors, many of whom have businesses here in Barnstable, they've been doing a lot with heat pumps. And so we're seeing a lot of interest, and what we're looking to do is move people off of those other fuels or upgrade their electric heat to those cold climate heat pumps. We're going to be tiering those incentives so that as you have less income, you pay less. The more income you have, you might pay a little bit more. But we're looking to add those cold climate heat pumps, match them with PV, and then help all the customers with battery storage. So that on those highest, hottest, most humid days, we are not making it worse for the grid. We are actually going to be able to help contribute to the grid. I will say, and it's one of the next slides, that even if you're a natural gas customer, that's up next. So before I get to that though, I do just want to let folks know that for many of you who have smart devices, I see a lot of folks with them now. I personally have plug loads for my husband so we can turn off the man cave and I don't have to go into scary territory. You know, these are one of the things that you can do and that hopefully we can help to reduce energy usage. And if you are like my husband, you forgot because the dog did something, the baby did something else, and let alone these lights are on for hours. So we're gonna hopefully be able to do that as a demonstration project. So before I get to that, one of the things that we are looking for from a storage perspective, the battery storage that I talked about, is for those natural gas customers that do have PV, we are looking to also work with natural gas customers as well as businesses. So if you do have a business and you're looking for something like that, you know, please reach out as well. Maggie did mention, and I'll just do the caveat, these enhancements are things that we've put out there. There's no guarantee that we'll get them, but we are earnestly hoping that they will approve us. And as soon as we know, we will be going back out and doing some marketing. Because we were talking about Main Streets, I do just want to highlight that we did do a Main Streets initiative this year where we were offering 100% for many of the items. We are looking to continue that, as well as continue our nonprofit effort and the 100% that we offer for our municipalities. So a lot of times the towns, as you guys know, are budget constrained, and we do not want that to be a barrier when it comes to efficiency for the towns. This is where the storage was. So sorry, I already said that. But then the second thing is on vehicle charging. We are going to be looking at partnering with the infrastructure updates that are being done through various entities like Eversource and the Department of Environmental Protection. But when we're doing that, we don't want people to be charging during the hottest times when electricity is really expensive. So what we want to do is start shifting that to off-peak hours and hopefully rewarding customers to do so. So here's the big thing. These programs cost a lot of money. It's part of the reason why we're here. In 2019 to 2021, you are looking at $45 million budgets to $61 million budgets. This is if we spend all of our money. You all are paying for that. Again, this is why we want people to know what it is, to be able to participate in it, and to be able to really help us to develop these even further. So as Maggie said earlier, all of these programs do have to be cost effective, which means that for every dollar you are investing, that you get at least $1 worth of value. I can say that we are robustly cost effective, so they do return quite a bit of value. These numbers probably don't mean a lot to most people. They don't think in megawatt hours. But this does help to contribute positively to the grid, which can be very expensive. And with that, I know this is right before the holidays, so we appreciate you listening to us. We know sometimes this can be very dry. But again, this is something we want everyone to know about and to participate in and to take advantage of. The information on the plans is here at these links, and always feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you for the presentation, much appreciated. Obviously, there's a good resource here for figuring things out, and I appreciate the offer to be able to reach out direct, kind of offline as well. But are there any questions? Councilor Beedenbender?
Thank you very much for that. My questions are concerned more about public awareness and how do we get people this information, because I think part of it is, you know, it's almost too good to be true, and people don't trust it, right? And so it's trying to get over that hurdle. The other hurdle is that there's a little bit of wonkiness, nerdiness to this too, which it's not extremely accessible to a lot of people from that perspective. So that's another hurdle to get over. So I'm just curious about how we can get this information and reach our residents and our businesses in a more efficient way. And one thing I was wondering is that, you know, we have a lot of social service agencies that work with individuals, families who you know, would certainly qualify low to moderate income. And just curious if you directly deal with those agencies. Okay, great. I see you nodding your head. Thank you.
Sorry, nodding my head isn't helpful. Yes, we do, and actually we work very closely with the Barnstable Council on Aging, and your center will host an open house, and will bring in surrounding communities just for a presentation, to find out what they're eligible for, to help them, how do you read your electric bill? So we're always looking for a forum. We've done, Kiwanis, Rotary, Margaret talked about the Main Street Initiative. The evaluation actually of our program showed the most effective way is word of mouth. The trust that's been built from a business or a resident that has participated in the program. So we're always looking for, staff's available, I'm available. If you have a venue, whether it's a small meeting or a very large civic association, we will gladly come and talk to people. We also, you may have been seeing, we market on a statewide level. If you've watched any of the ABC, CBS, Fox, you'll see Mass Save being advertised. But sometimes people think Mass Save and don't make the connection to the compact or even the utility. But we're trying to brand ourselves. But I think locally, the best way is to get out in our communities. And we're always available and willing to meet with any group that you can think of. But we do have a lot of contacts in Barnstable.
Thank you. Just one thing that I just was thinking of, with the Vineyard Wind Forums that are coming up, it would be great if you guys just had a presence there, just informational, because you have a group of folks that are tuned in, and it's certainly a relationship between the two, so that would be great.
That's an excellent idea. I'll follow up with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Schnepp?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I know firsthand of some folks who have recently got insulation and replacement of furnaces, and to the extent that you can have actual testimony and have it available on your website, I think that, again, building the trust through real people talking about their experiences would be great. Just a question that might not be exactly in your territory, but what is the status of net metering? I know that was kind of putting further expansion of photovoltaic installations.
So there's now a smart tariff will be, so RECs, renewable energy certificates, there was SRECs, there was RECs, and then there were SRECs. That's changing, so there's now going to be a smart tariff. So you can still net meter, but it's now, rather than the calculation of the value of the net metering credit is changing, and it is going to be under a smart tariff. And I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek because you have to be really smart to figure it out. And we've been working with staff to provide a resource and some examples on our website. It hasn't, I don't know when the official date for rollout has been announced. The tariff has been approved by the Department of Public Utilities. So you still can get credits, but it's changed. It's not as valuable, for lack of a better term, than if you installed a PV system 10 years ago. You got a very rich net metering credit. The smart tariff is something less than that, but it has value to encourage you to participate and to install a renewable energy. Again, we have some stuff on our website, but that would be something that's Austin Brandt, our power supply, could really get into the weeds on, and I'm at like a 35,000-foot level.
Yeah, and there is a calculator online. I'll tell you, there's many inputs to it. But I will say that the good luck, I guess, is that Eastern Mass, particularly this territory, still has a lot of room in Block 1, which is the most generous. And, if there's ever any need for us to come up with a one-pager or do one-on-one, we're happy to do that. It's a little complicated once you get into the details, but there are calculators.
One more follow-up. Speaking of tariffs, have we felt any of the national tariffs impacting the cost of the solar systems yet?
In general, I think we're still trying to figure out what the impacts of all of the tariffs are. I will say that it is already starting to affect actually lighting products, where we're seeing that it could be anywhere from a 5% to a 20%, but because some of the things are unknown, we don't know exactly what the impact is. I would anticipate that anything that is subject to the tariff will probably see an increase at some point.
Councilor Flores?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the presentation. Well done. Just a couple of quick questions. Relative to the income eligibility types of discounts, are there any discounts that are age-related for our senior population here in Cape Cod, or is everything income-related?
So it is income related, but I will say that the way that fuel assistance is set up, if you're familiar with it, you do get points for different elements, and age is one of them. Disability is another, income, small children in the home. So I would highly encourage, because a lot of folks that we talk to are very much unaware as seniors on fixed incomes that they're eligible for this.
That's why I asked the question, really, as a way of getting that information out, because I think some of my fellow councilors have already suggested that in many ways, you're a well-kept secret. I mean, people know who you are, but yet they don't really understand the intricacies of what it is exactly that you do. You know, the past couple of years, probably 5 years ago, I had you all come out and do all the insulation and do all of those kinds of activities, and what should have been a $10,000 job was like a $3,000 job. It's a no-brainer for anybody that's, you know, obviously wants to increase the efficiency, if you will, of their particular property. I'm curious, though, there was a time where the rates coming out of Eversource, buying directly from them versus Cape, you got a better deal with Eversource. I mean, it's just the way the system works, the way you bid out, you know, when the energy level came in. How are we doing now?
I'm very happy to say we've been underneath, priced below Eversource for the last 4 pricing periods. So statistically, 70% of the time we've been below Eversource. But for the last 4 pricing periods, we have been below Eversource's basic service, which is very good. And as I mentioned, that's
excellent.
Thanks to David and his help in the bid process as well. And for customers, for both the income, if anyone has questions, what they're eligible for, call our call center. And we're right in South Yarmouth, so we can walk you through it. We can explain what you're eligible for. Because sometimes people, as you said, don't know. A lot of municipal retirees that retired 20 years ago are income eligible, because the Barnstable County retirement average pension for somebody, a pensioner from 20 years ago, is about $18,000. So statistically, getting that information out, just call us. 800-797-6699 is our local number, and we'll be happy to walk somebody through that. We also have on our, and again, in response to input from the selectmen and council, on our website, we have a lot of information on electric supply, how to choose a supplier, what you should look for, our pricing, the utility pricing, again, to help a customer make wise decisions that they want.
And just one final question. I happen to be a pro heat pump person, too. And I'm just I'm just curious in terms of, you were mentioning battery backup systems. So in the event that we lost electrical power, so how long would these battery backup systems work? Because now you're really competing between fossil fuels and someone having a generator on their property, and that's a really saleable kind of idea and product, if it makes sense.
Exactly, and that's part of the resiliency that we're looking to add to people's homes. And so the estimate right now, and it would not be a full house system, is that, with a roughly 7.5 kW solar array on your home, heat pumps probably just on a first floor. If you have more than one floor, it probably wouldn't do both. We're looking at probably around 4 hours that you would be able to use just the battery backup. But then that doesn't take into account the fact that, because many times after a power outage, the sun comes out. And if the panels are able to recharge, the hope is that that would get you through the evening back to the sunlight again.
Just for some background, I think it's important to note, because it was not something I was aware of. If you have solar on your home now and the grid goes down, your solar system goes offline. So what this is, the 3 technologies are proposing to do under strategic electrification is, in the event that the grid goes down and you have a solar system paired with a battery, and your heating or cooling system is a heat pump, you get isolated. You're almost like a mini microgrid. So unlike now, when your PV is just a bunch of very expensive glass, when the grid is down on your roof, it is now able to function and charge your battery and also charge anything in your home during the day. So I think that's an added piece that as this industry develops, this is where you're going to see the market go in the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Thank you.
Councilor Dagwan?
Yes, you spoke about, thank you for your presentation this afternoon. You spoke about nonprofit and the efforts with them. Could you talk a little bit about the nonprofits and how you work with them?
Sure, and I'll say that I'll give you the current, but we are looking to expand it, just so you know. So right now, for those nonprofits that have been in operation for at least 5 years, that have an annual operating revenue of less than $2 million unrestricted, or if they're working with low-income facilities, $15 million. What we do is we provide 100% for cost-effective non-gas measures. And so that really means that we're able to go in, and if it's going to pay back $1 for every dollar that we invest, as long as we have the documentation, we would be able to help install things without a direct cost to that nonprofit. You're welcome.
Councilor Cullum?
Just a quick question about the photovoltaic battery. If you already have solar on your house, can you get the battery backup by calling, or does it have to be the whole system installed at one time?
So there are, as Margaret mentioned, so we're asking for approval for 1,000 batteries during this 3-year period. 700 are set aside for the 3 technologies, and then 300 are available for other residential and small business.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer would be yes, if you have solar, and you could submit an application once we have everything approved and be eligible for a battery.
Awesome. And then one other quick question about the SREC credits changing to the tariff. If you have the solar on your home already and you're under SREC now, or the REC credits, you don't change to tariff. You got in under the wire and you're getting paid more,
correct.
right?
And that's very important. I hope I didn't confuse anybody. The smart tariff only is applicable for new systems. Anybody who's already has a PV system, and all of the town systems that are on the airport and elsewhere, they're already vested under the existing laws.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy holidays and Happy New
holidays
Year
to
to
you.
you all.
Thank you, David.
Mr. President,
Yes.
could I ask David Anthony come back for a moment, please?
Good evening.
Good evening. I would like to take a step back to the Kmart lease. The pivotal point, as I pointed out while we had Katie, the airport manager, in here, is when she opened the door and made it available for our assistant manager to go in there and pitch FAA to get it done. But that then turned up the workload for at least 4 people that I see in here tonight. And they have busy schedules without jumping on a project for the airport. So first and foremost, as soon as David appeared at the desk, I thought, wow, what a valiant job he and Joanna Boucher did with the evaluation committee. And then I think about Elizabeth Jenkins and how she got out and worked on the RFP with Ruth Weil over there. And certainly Mark Milne was there for every step of the way for the evaluation. So we have some terrific professional staff with us tonight. They took on a load that was way in excess of anything anybody would have predicted when we were looking at the workload in front of us this year. And they all performed magnificently, and I think they taught the airport commissioners a lesson, and that is, if you work with us, we can do great things. So I wouldn't let you lose this night away from your family, as this is the truth for the other 4, without thanking you for that particular effort, as well as all of your efforts through the year. So thank you.
Job well done. All right, we're going to move into the orders of the day. Councilor Rapkosady, could you please read item 219032, please?
Yes, Mr. President, this is old business. This is roll call, 2/3. This is not a public hearing. The hearing was closed at our last meeting. This is item 219032, amending Article 5, Chapter 240, Section 25 of the zoning ordinance to revise regulations for the Highway Business District, as read.
We have a second, and we have council discussion on this item.
Mr. President, may the record reflect I'm withdrawing myself from the dais and the room for the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Clerk will take note. So do we have any council discussion on this item? No public hearing. We closed that at the last meeting. It's a Scribner's error. Nobody? Oh, Counselor Neary, you gotta be a little bit more. Go ahead.
Seeing where it went. Thank you, Mr. President. As I mentioned at the last town meeting, I think that this, my opinion is, of this change in zoning, this really purely comes down to property ownership. And with that said, there's been a lot of talk about businesses, or the business relationship with this zoning change. Ultimately, though, it's about an individual's ability to determine what happens with their property, whether it's residential, whether it's multifamily, whether it is business. And when we looked at this from the beginning, I think what we're trying to do is we're just trying to pick up the opportunity for incremental changes to property transfer or property use. And I think that healthy properties, whether they be fully rented or residentially occupied, it's kind of a fine line. When tenancy rates fall, the whole mindset of ownership, whether, again, it's your personal property or whether it's a business, things change in terms of how you're going to look at that property, your comfort level with that property, what is the long-term costs involved with those properties. So if we can enact a change where the tenancy and occupied rates of the properties along these corridors increase, the individual owners then, therefore, start to spend money on those properties. They improve them, they repair them, they make them better. And when we look along the HB zone, there are certainly areas that have kind of gone neglected over the last, really, 2 decades. And again, this is not a wholesale change. This is not, I don't believe that this is a waterfall effect that's going to happen and all these properties will turn over. I think it's just an incremental change where we can remove some of the hurdles for increased occupancy rates. And ultimately, that's why I'm voting for this. I think that the entire council should really get behind this. This is not something that is punitive in any fashion to the owners of these properties. It merely turned back the clock when rights were taken away from the property owners on these corridors. That's my thought, and I am certainly voting for it.
Any other councilors? Councilor Beedenbender?
Just a point of order, how we're going to proceed regarding the planning board's recommendations. Are we going to be going through each amendment one by one?
No, that's just recommendations. If someone wants to make an amendment, they have to do an individual amendment for an individual item. But we're not going to go through the planning board recommendations. They were read in the record, and then the last 2 weeks, the council had an opportunity to read them.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Rapcorsetti? Oh, Councilor, one of you have to go. Councilor Schnapp.
I just wanted to acknowledge Councilor Neary's arguments about the property rights of those parcel owners, but to add to that, that those rights are part of a bundle of rights, and as a council, we have to consider how the uses of that property affect those who might be affected by those uses, whether those are abutters or whether it's the larger community in terms of aesthetics, traffic considerations. So while I agree and was part of the committee that moved forward with this zoning change, I also think that some of the recommendations provided by the planning board, echoed by some others in their communication to the council, should be considered by the body tonight.
Councilor Rapcorsetti?
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, served on the committee, And I do have a series of motions I'd like to offer as amendments to 2019-032, based upon the Planning Board report and recommendations presented to the Town Council on December 6th, 2018, if I may. And I guess I'll take them one by one. Under Section 1 of 2019-032, I move to strike under subsection 240-25B, principal permitted uses, subsection 240-25B, parenthesis 25, self-storage facility.
Is there a second? Any council discussion on this proposed amendment?
So right now, that is allowable by conditional. If someone get a special permit and do something like that, if we move forward with this, we're saying we can never have a self-storage facility in this
I think the
district, correct?
amendment was to not have it as of right.
As of right, correct? It
correct,
still stays as
Counselor?
conditional. Okay, just making sure. Okay.
Never say never, Counselor.
Anyone else on this? Oh, the town attorney is going to clarify that. I think the light's on.
Good evening, Council President, councilors. If that is stricken as a principal use, it doesn't appear as a conditional use, so that would not be available in this zoning district at all, unless there was further amendment to put it as a conditional use instead.
Thank you for the clarification. Councilor Levesque?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I would suggest that maybe we just amend that so that it's not completely stricken, but it's put in as, back in as a conditional use and not necessarily taken out, if that's okay.
Councilor Rapidsey, do you want to amend your proposed amendment?
I'm sorry, no.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment that's on the table, proposed amendment? Councilor Bienbender?
I would agree with Councilor Rapgrassetti. I believe that that use is more suited to the industrial area, and I agree with striking it, sorry.
Any other councilors?
Point of clarification. Amendments are a majority.
Right, it's a simple majority.
Okay.
Councilor Hebert?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, didn't we have, though, when somebody appeals something, even though if it's not in a zoning-approved area, can an individual appeal, and then the zoning board reviews that and can make a different decision?
I'll ask our Director of Planning to address that.
Good evening, councilors. Elizabeth Jenkins, Director of Planning and Development. I apologize, Councilor Hebert, could I ask you to clarify your question?
So what I'm asking is, if we strike this, any item, and then somebody really believes that this is in the best interest, and they're going to do it in almost any area in our zoning code, can't someone come and make a special appeal to say that this is what they're looking at, and the zoning board could take that under consideration?
So in this case, I think the mechanism that you're referring to would be a variance from the principal permitted uses in the district. Use variances are something that are not widely available in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're one of the very few communities that does allow use variances at all. We allow them with the restriction that they are not available in certain areas. So use variances are not available specifically along the corridors of Route 28, Route 132, and West Main Street, which is consistent with the scope of the existing highway business district. So in this case, no, there is no sort of mechanism to allow for variance by the Zoning Board of Appeals from the principal permitted uses.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So if I could follow up on that. So what happens, in reality, the areas that we're asking to make these changes are relatively small. And there's relatively little room for much expansion there or much creativity, but we are allowing for more creativity. So rather than do point by point, I think that the difficulty with what we're being asked to do, and when we hear individual councilors who have worked tirelessly to make this zoning proposal, a lot of work went into this. I know how much work they went. And when you hear individuals express why they believe that this is best for us, it makes a lot of sense. I just want us to be very sensitive to the fact that the citizenry, even though they were invited to to the meetings and the committees, in a nutshell, the only way I guess I can say this is we're asking people to swallow, from their perspective, from the citizens' perspective, a very big pill all at once. And I don't have a solution to that, and I don't know how much water you have to give somebody to swallow that big a pill, but I just want us, for not just for this, but as our thinking goes on forward, everybody on this council is doing their very best for our community. And so each one of these issues are not little to the people who live in those districts, but I don't want to negate the good work that's gone in, but I want us, from this day forward, to always be sensitive to what we're asking our public to take. And again, I admire everybody who's worked hard on this, but for those who are looking in, it's hard to understand what we're trying to do. But it's beautiful, but it's hard. Thank you.
Just for kind of edification for the public, again, to try to distill this down into its simplest terms, because I think this is getting talked about a little bit more complicated than it actually is. The committee got together and talked about this zone. There's only two things that are allowed as of right: offices and banks without drive-through. But if you drive down West Main Street, and you drive down Route 132, and you drive down 28, you're going to see a lot more types of businesses than those two uses. Why is that? Because there's a lot of uses that were allowed by conditional permit. What the goal of this is to move some of those conditional permits to as of right. So when you see empty storefronts, blighted properties, what it does is it allows that to be rented quick, redeveloped quicker, even renting a unit in a plaza that's in this zone. If you are not an office or a bank without a drive-through, you have to go through a very long process to even rent this unit. Could be 6, 8, 9, 10 months. And it's not just time, it's thousands of dollars of lawyers' fees and presentations before boards. And it's really not a welcoming environment, you know, for folks that are just trying to start up even a mom and pop business along these zones, never mind a major investment in our town. So in its simplest terms, that's what this tries to do. And there's only a couple uses that were added by the committee in its effort to cast kind of a large net so the council can kind of look at it, winnow it down if they choose to. Some of those uses were pulled from the business zone, but the uses that are here already exist in this zone. They're operating businesses today. It's not adding anything that you're not going to see along these roads. And there's also no vacant lots. There's, you know, there's not, like you said, there's not this big tract of land waiting to be developed. Everything's developed. So going back to Councilor Neary's statement about trying to get these storefronts filled, trying to add some value to some of these blighted properties that have been sitting, you know, vacant and kind of rotting into the ground. We all drive by them on all three of the roads, to add some value so that the owners can invest in those properties, that they can be sold and redeveloped. And when we drive down these corridors, you have a nice, you know, commercial space that you're driving by, and not blight, not empty storefronts. So I just wanted to try to simplify it a little bit more about what we're trying to do here. We're not recreating and putting new businesses there that aren't already operating in these zones. So hopefully that helps. Councilor Hebert?
If I may, I want to thank you, Mr. President, for not chastising me in a sense. I drifted greatly from Councilor Rapasetti's initial amendment, and I realized, and you gave me some tolerance on that, and I greatly appreciate it. And what you just said is exactly what I was asking that we do. You know, when leadership and people who worked in that committee, Councilor Levesque gave a beautiful presentation, and so did Councilor Neary, on why we got to where we are and what this document is all about. So you breathe life into this document, which to the average citizen is scary, but you make it so that it's more acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I try to breathe life into everything I do every day. Merry Christmas to you, sir. So we have the amendments still on the table. Councilor Cullum? You may. All right, I have a second. So this, you want to reread the amendment just because we've gone a little bit off track?
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, I move to strike under subsection 240-25B, principal permitted uses, subsection 240-25B, in parentheses, number 25, self-storage facility.
Okay, and there is a second. So all in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? One in opposition. Any abstentions? All right, so that amendment passes. Councilor Rapcorsetti.
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, I move to strike under subsection 240-25B, principal permitted uses, subsection 240-25B, number 7, contractor service establishments.
Okay, council discussion on this item? Councilor Levesque?
The contrast service establishments, so that's basically when Corey Ruggs went out of business and Fowler moved across the street, and pardon me, but I remember the landscaping company that occupied where Fowler was, that would fall under the contract service establishments, correct?
I believe so, but I can ask our Director of Planning to clarify the definition. Some of these have very broad definitions, I think is what you're getting to.
Right.
So the proposed definition in the proposed ordinance for contractor service establishments reads, wholesale sales and distribution of building materials, including plumbing, carpentry, lumber, electrical, heating, and air conditioning, and other similar service or repair businesses. Associated showrooms and sales/display space customarily accessory to such uses. In summary, I believe the concept that was trying to be put forward here was essentially a kind of sort of office space and showrooms in which contractors could work out of.
So like a Cloutier tile, there couldn't be another Cloutier tile in that area.
So the proposed amendment, yes, would be to strike contractor service establishments as a use. I'm not familiar with the full sort of scope of that specific business to make a.
Sure. Again, and the only reason I bring this up is that it's, these things are already allowed conditionally, and if we're removing them and striking them, I think we're going backwards. And that we need to be careful, and that we open this to give people more rights, not less rights. And again, if it's a conditional type of thing, I understand if you want to, the council, well, hold off, let's just keep that so we can still bring that before the zoning board. I understand that concern, but to keep, I just don't know. I'm a little fearful that we're going through things and we're not moving forward, we're moving backwards. So I'm not sure. Again, I think there's business opportunities for these people that want to expand, want to sell their business, and again, I just think it could be precarious if we move forward.
Councilor Rapcorsetti?
Perhaps Elizabeth can qualify that, whether or not this was even a conditional use in the previous HB zone.
So as President Steinhilber, spoke to, again, the only principal permitted uses are those offices and banks. What is behind that is allowing all uses in our business district as conditional uses. I will say that the business district allows a very broad range of uses, including wholesale and retail. I would think, again, without sort of a full zoning analysis, that contractor service establishments would have been permitted as a conditional use, or are permitted as a conditional use, again, with the grant of a special permit by the Zoning Board of Appeals in the HB district.
In the HB or in the previous business district that we're morphing into the HB?
In the HB district. Today, again, the proposed amendment is to, the proposed HB allows it as a conditional use. The amendment would be to strike it completely.
Councilor Neary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we're going right back to the same thing. I had a conversation with Councilor Biedenbender over this particular item, and when you see contractor service establishments, you may think Shepley's. You could, I guess, right? On the other hand, you could think of Country Gardens and maybe a landscape contractor right next door to it. So what is, in fact, the actual business that we're talking about? Secondly, I know when we look down this list of many, many different businesses that we present, you still have to step back and look at the available properties that go along these corridors. So when we talk about Shepley's, let's use that as an example, and I'm not promoting Shepley's. However, think about the acreage required for a specific business like Shepley's. Frankly, it's never going to happen in these corridors. These tend to be small, undersized, especially on the West Main Street end of things. So there are caveats as part of this proposed zoning change that kind of fills in the blanks behind all of these additional proposed businesses. So I just fear that when we start working down the list, we can always think about let's use a movie theater, for lack of a better word. I mean, I could think of the Chatham Orpheum Theater, or I could think of the Million Cineplex movie theater. Okay, but we're talking about lot sizes and things like that, and those become, in effect, a policing mechanism of what can go into these properties. So I would just, I guess, further put forward, just when you view these, you've got to kind of think about what possible location could they go into, and then what in fact is a contractor service establishment. It could be just a local builder that wants to have a showroom for his business. That's my thoughts. Anyways.
Councilor Rapcorsetti.
You know, sitting on that committee, there were several members of the planning board also in attendance, and we listened to their input. I have a great deal of respect for the planning board in the fact that they deliberated over this proposal and came back with some suggested amendments. And that's the reason why I put forth to strike the contractor service establishments. This is coming directly from their recommendations, and I happen to agree with them. It was, you know, I will say, well, I don't want to say because it's not speaking to the amendment.
Any other councilors on this proposed amendment? Councilor Neary.
Just as a quick follow-up, and I understand what the council's saying. As opposed to striking it, I would just be more comfortable putting it under a conditional use, as opposed to striking it. Again, because again, I think it eliminates the opportunity down the road of those type of businesses.
So, for an example, Councilor Neary, say, you know, Country Garden's been there a long time, but maybe someday it's not there. Another like business couldn't just go in there because we would have eliminated. Even if you had someone that had the same business model, they wouldn't be allowed to go there. Right, okay. Councilor Levesque?
And I would say something like Cloutier's as well. Again, you know, I can't say it enough. I I think this was opened up so that we could move forward. If we're just leave it the same, that's what I would suggest, not, and maybe we can, I understand this amendment has to go forward if Councilor Rapcasetti doesn't want to amend the amendments per se, but, I would be for, I would listen to any of these things, just putting it and leaving it the way it was, instead of eliminating it altogether.
So just for point of clarification on this use, right now in HB as it exists today, this does exist as a conditional use or it does not?
Does exist as a conditional use.
Today, okay.
Correct. And if I could just make one clarification regarding your prior statement, say, for example, if a existing contractor service establishment closed, with zoning there are always caveats. There are sort of vested or grandfathered rights that properties retain. So even if this, even if this were deemed to be a prohibited use in the district going forward, a business that was operating today would still sort of retain the right for a certain period of time to reestablish it itself, sort of within the same or perhaps expanded parameters under the sort of ability to allow for the continuation of grandfathered uses.
Thank you for that. Councilor Schnapp?
I guess the question that I have is the definition of the contractor service establishment seems to limit it to just wholesale sales. And I didn't know if like Clotier's is both a retail and a wholesale. And so I don't know if there's any room for something to fall in any of our other definitions. How many of our contractors are strictly retail or wholesale? It seems like it's a consideration that I can understand the other counselors wanting to completely not close that option off.
All right, so the amendment's still on the table, and this amendment would eliminate it completely from the zone, either conditional or as of right. Is that correct, Counselor? All right, is there any further discussion on the amendment as proposed? Counselor Cullum.
I would support it as a conditional use. I feel like there's a lot of support for that on the council, and it would still be reviewed. And I think it's pro-business and pro-small business, so I would support that if you were keen to amend your amendment.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes, question for Elizabeth. Currently, in the Bell Tower Mall, there's a contractor that has a showroom there. I think it's called Global Marble and Granite. And I've been in this showroom, and it's one of the most beautifully designed, quite elegant, what appears to be a retail and wholesale granite cellar. Would this kind of business be prohibited under the current amendment?
I can't speak to that exact business, but I can speak to the process in which those determinations are made. So typically when there is a change of use that changes the nature of the business that is there, it goes through either a review by the building commissioner or a site plan review. The building commissioner then evaluates what is the principal use of that property and then makes a determination as looking at the uses that are allowed in the district as to whether that use is allowed by right conditionally or prohibited. So this particular example, it sounds like you're talking about a use that does both retail and wholesale. Again, I believe that is something the planning board addressed, but in the proposed amendment, it sounds like it is more of kind of a retail and showroom, and thus would be permitted.
The reason I asked is, yes, they do sell retail and wholesale, and they are contractors at the same time. So wouldn't that fall under both?
And again, I think it's a determination of what is the principal use of the property. There may always be sort of accessory uses of business, but again, I not being familiar with this, the exact nature of this use, things that the building commissioner and that the site plan review committee would consider would be, again, sort of principal use of the property. You know, a contractor service establishment is something that I think the committee sought to define differently. Oftentimes those come with you know, sort of vehicles, employee vehicles coming to the site, heavy equipment at times, storage of materials. I think those were sort of the considerations that were given to defining this as a separate use and making that use conditional. So whether or not those are sort of characteristics of that particular land use, again, I'm not familiar, but those are the types of things that would be considered into making that determination.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Councilor Levesque?
If I could just speak, I know there's probably members of the audience, people might be watching. The next step after what Elizabeth discussed, so and then it goes up to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and what happens there, and if people make a presentation, they kind of have to sell their business in a way. So they have to make a presentation, show design, show what exactly they're going to be doing for business. If they're making a building, there's plans, landscape design, all these different things. So again, these are the expenses that they would have to pay right now. Lawyers' fees, landscape architects, all these, you know, types of things. So we were, the point of the board was try to maybe lessen the load if possible. But I also understand, after listening to public comment, which we should all take very seriously, listening to, you know, reviewing, sitting back and finding those things, I don't want to seem in any way that we're trying to push this through, that type of thing. Again, it's just that I do, having been on the Zoning Board of Appeals for 3 years, you know, I saw how the process worked, and I believe in the process. Actually, that's a very well-functioning board. We've had great leadership over the last number of years on that board, and they do a really good job, and Elizabeth led that for a while, and now Anna Brigham is there as well, assisting, and so, and Paul, and so there is good work being done at that level. So that's kind of why I'm saying if we keep it conditional, I believe in the process, and that these things will be sifted through correctly, and that will, you know, ultimately it'll be good for the town. Those people will still have to pay all those fees and do those things, and if that's the council's wish, and we want to move forward with these certain uses, you know, I actually am in support of that. So, but again, I'm just worried about just striking things altogether.
Councilor Rapcorsetti?
I appreciate Councilor Levesque's comments. One thing you did neglect to say is when it's under conditional use and going before ZBA, there is public notification on this, whereas permitted uses do not require public hearing, and that's a significant difference. So I'd like to
Sure.
emphasize that.
Right. Excuse me.
Councilor Levesque?
Yeah, and just in response to that, honestly, that's the point I was kind of making. I understand that, and yes, to your point, you are correct that that's why I say I have confidence in that process that, you know, and again, people are notified and things of that nature, and I am in agreement of making things conditional once again. That's all I'm saying. Again, it doesn't have to be by right. I just don't want people to think that, you know, because, and I don't think Councilor Neary would say the same thing, just because we're speaking on the other side of things doesn't necessarily, we're trying to just saying everything needs to be by right. I'm letting people know that about the process, and that we are willing to keep it the same way.
Councilor Schnapp?
I think one of the challenges of this particular zoning ordinance is that it takes into consideration two pretty different areas of the town. I mean, the Route 132 corridor is quite different than West Main. And so a wholesale contractor service establishment, I have some hesitation to even allowing a conditional use in some parts of this zoning district. But I do understand some of the concerns about entities that have a retail and a wholesale component, but the way the definition reads, it's a wholesale, and that's what we're trying to address.
Counselor Cullum?
Move the question?
All right, I have a second. All those in favor of this proposed amendment? Do you want to read it again? Go ahead.
Under section 1 of 2019-032, I move to strike under 24.025B, principal permitted uses, subsection 240-25B, number 7, contractor service establishment.
All those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Okay, the amendment doesn't carry.
Mr. President, may I offer a substitute motion?
Yep.
Under section 1 of 2019-032, I move to strike under subsection 240.25B, principal permitted uses, subsection 240.25B, number 7, contractor service establishments, and instead insert it as a conditional use under subsection 240-25C.
Second.
But I just want to clarify again, because I think the Director of Planning told us that if we leave it alone, it already exists as a conditional.
Only in the district as it exists today.
Right.
So the proposed district going forward, no, the effect of.
Okay.
So no, again, given the fact that the motion did not carry, it would currently continue to be allowed as principal permitted use only. As of right, only.
Right, okay. Was there a second?
Yes, it was.
I second.
Okay. Council discussion on this item. Second. Do you want to read the amendment again, please?
Really fun to read. Under section 1 of 2019-032, I move to strike under subsection 240.25B, principal permitted uses, subsection 240.25B, number 7, contractor service establishments, and instead insert it as a conditional use under subsection 240-25C.
And there was a second. All those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Okay, that passes. Any other councilors on this item? Councilor Rapkasetti.
Under section 1 of 2019-032, subsection 240-25B, 24, retail and wholesale, I move to strike and wholesale.
Which one is it?
Is there a second? Second. Council discussion on this proposed amendment? Councilor Biedenbender?
Could we ask Ms. Jenkins to come forward and just clarify what wholesale might actually be in that situation, an example or two, please? Thank you.
So I don't believe this is a use that we have a definition for either existing or proposed, but typically wholesale, in my estimation, would refer to sales of a product in bulk, not to the public. So as opposed to having customers come into an establishment and sort of buy items on an individual retail basis, this would be sort of involve the selling of a product to either companies or sort of other groups, sort of without that face-to-face transaction.
Thank you. So similar to what Councilor Cullum did with the previous amendment, I would also offer that it be retained as a conditional use.
But we got to deal. We have to deal with the amendment as is on
Okay.
the table first.
All right.
That's all. We just got to take it one step at a time. Councilor Cullum.
So I guess that would preclude, say, Penn d'Avignon from selling their bread wholesale on West Main Street. Can you imagine a better thing to have on West Main Street than that? So I can't support it. I can't support that, but I could support putting it into the conditional uses should we want to amend that. Thank you.
Councilor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think two primary examples is the fish market near the high school, and they do both retail and wholesale. If we look at Quality Produce on 132, they do both open to the public and wholesale. What's that? Yeah. So I just think that those kinds of facilities are terrific. Beaupont or any of them would just be terrific. So leaving it alone says that it can be retail and wholesale. That's what we're allowing to be done. So I think it's a public service. If even if Star Market decided that they wanted to, which is on West Main Street, which it happens to be in my precinct, if they wanted to also do more wholesale in a way of staying that, keeping their doors open and keeping their employees hired, and serve the public by making some wholesale departments, I think that would be great. So I would like to just leave that one alone personally. Thank you.
Councilor Wallace?
There are some beauty supply locations that operate brick and mortar stores that don't operate as a retail outlet, but do operate as a wholesale outlet. Now, I think this should be worded say retail and or wholesale, so that those operations that are focused on a particular licensed market could still exist as wholesale only.
Well, we have the amendment on the table.
Yeah.
Proposed amendment. So it's up to Councilor Rapcasetti if she wants to amend it in any way. Or we just continue on with the discussion on this amendment. So thank you, Councilor Wallace. Any other councilors have comments on this proposed amendment? I have a second. Would you read the amendment one more time, please?
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, subsection 240-25B, number 24, retail and wholesale, I move to strike and wholesale.
Okay. All those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Any abstentions? One abstain. Councilor Schnapp. All right, we will continue on. Councilor Rapcasetti.
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, under subsection 240-25B, principal permitted uses, I move amend the first sentence in the second footnote by striking out the number 10 and substituting in place thereof the number 20. So the first sentence of footnote 2 as amended shall read, the landscape setback from all residential property lines shall be 20 feet.
I have a second. And for clarification, what is the setback now in the zone?
So this is a setback, again, not pertaining just to buildings or structures, but the requirement is to maintain a landscape, a minimum landscape area. So this would prohibit improvements such as parking lots or other sort of accessory structures from being within that buffer. I'm gonna look at my planner, but I don't believe we have a minimum landscape setback from residential property lines at this point in the district.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilor Levesque?
Elizabeth, in a typical residential area, maybe RFO, isn't it typically, was it 15 feet is a side yard setback?
Again, that is a setback from structures,
Right.
for structures, and so there is a existing side yard setback that again is I believe a minimum of 15 feet from residential properties, but again pertaining to structures. This is specifically a landscape setback that would not allow other improvements, most namely parking lots within that buffer.
Any other councilors on this one?
This amendment seems to
Councilor Schnapp?
speak, oh, excuse me, thank you. This amendment seems to speak to the concern that, we do have a business district abutting residential areas, and this would, I think, protect residents from any undue changes.
Anyone else? Councilor Hebert.
Thank you, but within that particular section, it's referring to residential, correct? And so, again, if I look at my precinct in West Main Street, we have many apartment buildings. And so when you're looking at the scarcity of the land, if a multi-residential building were to be built, making them go that 20 feet back might make it so the project couldn't go forward. I'm just concerned about that. And believe me, I believe in trees, but so how do we handle that?
So you're speaking of more redevelopment of an apartment complex, because there obviously aren't large tracts of land where someone will come in and buy it.
I suppose
Oh,
they built more, Eric. They wanted to expand the building.
I'll let Elizabeth speak to that.
So I'd appreciate the opportunity to make an important clarification on this provision. So the provision in question is a sort of a footnote performance standard. So if you look at the use of principal permitted uses, this does not apply to all uses in the district. It is only applicable to a very limited number of uses. The proposed was contractor service establishments, which we've now addressed, self-storage facilities, which we've now addressed, and veterinary hospital and clinics. So of the uses where this was originally proposed to apply, the only remaining use where this requirement would be applied would now be for veterinary hospital and clinics. And the requirement would only be to maintain this use from property lines that abut residential land uses.
Only residential.
Only residential land uses. And again, at this point, we have limited the applicability of this provision. The only remaining use to which it would apply would be to new veterinary hospitals or clinics within the HB district.
Thank you.
As uses as permitted as of right, again, without that other sort of zoning board review.
Anyone else on this proposed amendment? You have a second? We'll read it one more time, please. I'm just doing this to be very particular about the zoning, that's all.
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, under subsection 240-25B, principal permitted uses, I move to amend the first sentence in the second footnote by striking out the number 10 and substituting in place thereof the number 20. So the first sentence of footnote 2, as amended, shall read, the landscape setback from all residential property lines shall be 20 feet.
All right, and I have a second, so all those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Any abstentions? One abstain. What was the count on that, Madam Clerk? Okay. Councilor Rappacetti?
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, under subsection 240-25B, principal permitted uses, I move to amend the third footnote by adding after storage and dumpsters. So the third footnote as amended would read, parking areas for commercial vehicles, any exterior areas used for loading or storage, and dumpsters shall be screened from view from the public way.
Second. Any discussion on this proposed amendment? Second. You just read it, so I'm not going to ask you to do it immediately right after. All right, so all those in favor of this proposed amendment? And that's unanimous. Continuing on, Councilor Rappacetti?
I'm trying to get through this. Under Section 1 of 2019-032, subsection 240-25C, conditional uses, I move to strike subsection 240-25C, number 1, auto service and repair shops.
Is there a second? Okay, council discussion on this? Councilor Beanbender?
So there's two things that I want to ask about. One is a question and one is just sort of a thought. And this is where it gets really tricky with the HB applying to both 132 and 28. Because they are not the same animal. And it certainly should apply on 132, but I have issues with that on 28. That being said, though, what I am curious about, does an auto service and repair shop, for instance, a mobile station on 28 in Centerville that has a bay where you can go in and get an oil change, does that fall under this, right? Yeah. You want to go get your inspection sticker, that falls under that. I've got a headlight out, right? Okay, thank you.
Councilor Cullum?
Yeah, I would like to see this under conditional uses, because it's needed on 132. And we have some on 28, and I can't see disallowing it. So I just think it's not forward thinking, but thank you. Yeah.
Councilor Levesque?
Again, I'll just give an example of an improvement, is that the auto shop there on West Main Street used to be a foreign auto repair place, and the gentleman actually who owned the Sunoco station was trying to do something with that, bought that property, went through the process and really improved that. I mean, completely redid. And, I actually went there to get an inspection sticker, and it's all state-of-the-art in there. New poured floor, very clean, the parking lot's done again. And again, this was something that it was the same thing, but it was, because it went through the process, and again, I have faith in our staff, that if this is kept a conditional use, the right thing will happen, and we'll see redeveloped properties and beautification of West Main Street.
Any other councilors? I have a second, but I'll have you read it one more time.
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, subsection 240-25C, conditional uses, I move to strike subsection 240-25C, number 1, auto service and repair shops.
All right, all those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Proposed amendment doesn't pass. Councilor Approsetti?
Okay, I'm going to skip to, under Section 1 of 2019-032, subsection 240-25C, conditional uses, move to strike subsection 240-25C, number 9, warehouse or distribution.
Do I have a second? Okay. Council discussion. Councilor Cullum?
Again, I have concerns about it because of my example before, of Pen d'Avignon, or of Guaranteed Fresh Produce, where I bought produce when I owned the market. I feel like it belongs under conditional. I think we can take a good look at it then and make a responsible decision about where we're putting it. Thank you.
Any other councilors? I have a second. I'll read it one more time. I just want to be clear.
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, subsection 240-25C, conditional uses, move to strike subsection 240-25C, number 9, warehouse or distribution.
Okay. All those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Doesn't pass. Councilor Approsetti?
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, under subsection 240-25C, conditional uses, I move to amend footnote 1 by striking the number 10 and substituting in its place the number 20, so the first sentence as amended shall read, the landscape setback from all residential property lines shall be 20 feet.
I think we did that one already. Yeah, we did that one.
Oh, that's a different footnote.
No, it's a different footnote.
Okay, different
This
use.
is under conditional. The other one was under
Principal.
principal.
Yep, you're right. Were there any, this wasn't limited to anything, this was anything under conditional? As
So-
opposed to the principal, which was limited, just ended up being a veterinarial hospital.
Correct. So this, again, is a footnoted performance standard applicable to specific uses in the district. In this case, all proposed conditional uses in the district with the exception of drive-throughs.
And is there a standard right now in the existing zone setback?
From residential property lines, no, there is not.
Okay. Any other counselors on this? Councilor Schnapp?
So this applies to all the conditional uses that are listed, and we have not stricken any of the conditional uses to date. And so I would highly recommend that we preserve this 20 feet buffer from residential property lines.
Councilor Neary?
I would just say that where it's under conditional uses and it's going to have additional eyes placed on it. So again, I think this might be legislating for the sake of legislating.
Councilor Levesque?
I would, again, when we're talking a landscape setback, we're looking at a business that it's not, it's 20 feet of only landscaping. That's grass and trees. So that leaves no room for parking, no room for a drive-through. Again, the things that would be reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals or site plan review, all these things would go through the process. And again, I'm just thinking of things that hearings that I sat on that it wouldn't even be a question. And these things like Cumberland Farms, that development, it wouldn't be possible, and look how great that is to West Main Street right now. And so I just think that this would definitely hinder. And again, I'm not looking to put things right on top of residential properties. Not what we're trying to do. And again, normally there's a 15-yard setback in a residential area from residential property to residential property.
15 feet.
15 feet.
You
I
said
said
15 yards.
I'm sorry.
15 feet.
15 feet. I know, yeah, right. Sorry. And not a half a football field, not quite a half a football field. But that's already, so thinking of that, and this is a mixed-use area, I think 10 feet is reasonable to have as a conditional use.
Any other councilors? Councilor Hebert?
Again, I would like to echo what Councilor Levesque just said. I mean, again, that facility at Cumberland Farms is in my community, and it is serving my precinct very, very well. And so I would concur. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a second. I'll read the article one more time.
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, subsection 240-25C, conditional uses, I move to amend footnote 1 by striking the number 10 and substituting in its place the number 20. So the first sentence, as amended, shall read, "The landscape setback from all residential property lines shall be 20 feet."
All those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. Do you have another one? Councilor Rappasetti, go ahead.
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, subsection 240-25C, conditional uses, I move to amend footnote 2 by adding "and dumpsters." So footnote 2, as amended, shall read, "Parking areas for commercial vehicles, any exterior areas used for loading or storage, and dumpsters shall be screened from view from the public way."
Any council discussion on this?
Second.
Second. All those in favor of this proposed amendment? And that is unanimous. Councilor Rappasetti?
You win some, you lose some. Under Section 1 of 2019-032, under subsection 240-25D, bulk regulations, minimum lot area square feet, I move to strike 15,000 and substitute in its place thereof 21,780.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Clarification, what is the minimum lot size in the existing zone, please?
Currently, it is 40,000 square feet.
Councilor Schnepp, did you still have it? Okay, you had your hand up for a second. Any other council discussion on this? Councilor Neary.
Along the West Main Street corridor, if you go to the town website and just kind of look at the lot sizes, there are quite a few, probably 20%, 25% that are currently at that threshold. So I just fear that increasing it, again, we're talking about ease of transfer, ease of rental, ease of business change, ease of residential change. I think we're just adding another kind of hiccup to the process. So it certainly doesn't apply to many areas out on Route 132. but certainly in the West Main Street and Centerville area, it does. So I would not be for it.
Any other councilors? Councilor Levesque?
I would mirror what Councilor Neary said. Again, there's no permits in place. There's no shovels ready to go into the ground trying to redevelop these areas. We're just trying to give people who own property more opportunity to try to develop and improve their property. And like as Councilor Neary said, there's already pre-existing non-conforming lots of this size that would be eliminated from redevelopment.
Councilor Abcorsetti?
I have concerns with this, especially in regards to Route 28 in Centerville. If the HB zone permitted use is multifamily, there is no infrastructure to support multifamily housing along this area. There is no, and I'll put it bluntly, there's no sewerage there to handle flow from this kind of development. So I think we should be very cautious, and I know this is, these HB zones extend from covering two very distinctly different areas in town, and that's one of my fundamental problems with this piece of zoning. So I'd be very cautious to increase the limit. It's like putting the cart before the horse. So until we have infrastructure that can handle it, I would not support it.
Councilor Hebert?
Following up on Councilor Abcorsetti's comments just now, we right now have regulation in place, though, through the Board of Health that would mandate that the appropriate form of sewerage would exist, or alternative systems, that you could not move forward unless you could really prove that your system, septic system, would be able to contain to safe limits. Correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you.
Councilor Abcorsetti?
That's in jeopardy right now, and it's not going to be determined until the end of January, and that's the lifting of the estuary overlay. So I have concerns.
Any other councilors?
I
Sorry, Councilor Schnapp?
I echo Councilor Abcorsetti's concerns about that.
Anyone else? Okay. Read it one more time, please.
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, under the subsection 240-25D bulk regulations, minimum lot area square feet, I move to strike 15,000 and substitute in place thereof 21,780.
All those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Any abstentions? No abstentions. Okay. Continue, please.
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, under the subsection 240-25D bulk regulations, minimum yard setbacks or feet, the side, I move to strike the number 10 and substitute in place thereof the number 20.
Is there a second? Okay. Council discussion? Councilor Neary?
I'm just a little confused. I think I've heard this a bunch of times. So is this conditional use? Is this as right use? Could you repeat that again? Just on the bulk regs?
Anyone? Councilor Levesque?
Just to clarify, Mayor Paul, Councilor Neary, this is a side yard setback. It's not a landscaping setback. So it's, so just to maybe have Elizabeth a point of clarification, if you could just explain the difference between a landscape setback and a side setback.
Correct. So this is, again, under our bulk regulations pertaining to setbacks of structures from property lines. So this would be the minimum required distance between a structure and a property line.
Councilor Levesque?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up on that, and I still think a lot of development would be hindered by the again, we're talking from, if it's a 10-yard setback, we're not talking 10 feet from the person's other dwelling, we're talking 10 feet from the property line. And I think, again, there's developments, there's housing, as Council Hebert had mentioned, that would, be hindered. Even just, I can just think of all types of things that, Hacks putting together, different possibilities that, they need parking spaces, they need, and again, but driveways, it's just, again, giving that relief, I just think leaves us more opportunity, again, not just for commercial development, but for housing.
Councilor Cullum?
What is currently the setback, the side setback?
Currently the setback, and it's a tad confusing. Your cumulative side yard setback, so on both sides of your structure, has to add up to 30 feet.
Makes perfect sense.
So with no one individual setback being less than 10 feet. So you have to have at least 30 feet total, no less than 10 on each side.
So then going in, there would be, your neighbor would also have to have at least a 10-foot setback from the new rules. And then you would have one. So we still have 20 feet between structures.
Theoretically, noting that we have a predominance of pre-existing non-conforming structures in these districts.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Move the question.
A second. Can you please read it one more time?
Under Section 1 of 2019-032, under the subsection 240-25D bulk regulations, minimum yard setbacks, the feet, side, I move to strike the number 10, substitute in place thereof the number 20.
All those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Any abstentions? No. We'll continue on.
Okay, I'm going to skip the caliber. Under Section 1 of 2019-032, under subsection 240-25E, district-wide design and performance standards, I move to strike under subsection 240-25E, number 1, applicability, the second, third sentences, and fourth sentences, and substitute in place thereof the following. The design and performance standards shall apply to expansions and modifications and new development as defined herein. Design and performance standards shall not apply to changes of use or tenancy changes in an existing building or expansions or modifications below the thresholds defined in subsection A of this paragraph. And A, expansions or modifications. A project shall be considered an expansion or modification where any alterations to an existing building are proposed that exceed the following thresholds but do not meet the designation of new development as described in subsection B below. 1, an expansion of the footprint of a building by more than 20%. 2, more than 50% of the exterior walls or 50% of the roof area are completely removed or replaced. And sub 1, alterations to existing structures to accommodate second or third floor additions shall not be considered for the purposes of calculating this subsection. Changes to the interior of a structure or the addition of accessory equipment shall not be considered when determining what constitutes an expansion or modification. New development. A project shall be considered new development where a building for a principal use is proposed for construction that did not previously exist within the HB. New development may include new construction or demolition and reconstruction.
Is there a second? Okay. I don't really want to make you read that one again, so we'll see how quickly we get to moving the question. Councilor Schnapp?
Just some history. The committee had this language in the draft prior to the draft that was then sent to the town council. I believe that the planning board has supported this change. I would highly urge the council to support this amendment.
Anyone else?
Move the question.
Second. All those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Any abstentions? No. We got one more left.
Oh, well. Under section 1 of 2019-032, I move to amend subsection 240-25E2, in parentheses E, building design standards by adding corrugated metal to building materials, E1 as subsection E thereunder. So subsection 240-25E2, EI as amended shall read as follows. Building materials. The following building materials are prohibited on any facade: plain concrete block, glass block, exposed aggregate, rough finish, concrete wall panels, plastic, and corrugated metal.
Second, anyone? All right, council discussion on this one? Paul had his, you want to move the question? Paul had his hand up.
Thank you. Thank you for your consideration. Just in the glass.
I don't want you to use the charter objection, so I'm
Well,
recognizing you.
Very thoughtful. Very thoughtful. Yeah, thank you. On section B, glass block, you couldn't have any glass block on the facade?
That's how I would interpret that, yes. And these would be blocks of glass.
Paul, I think you're stuck in the 70s. It's okay.
Well, it may come up, glass bottles, but anyway, okay, thank you for that clarification.
All right. Anyone else?
Move the question.
Second. All those in favor of this proposed amendment? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Keep going.
On section 1 of 2019-032, I move to amend subsection 240-25E2E, building design standards, by striking subsection 240-25E2E2 in its entirety.
Is there a second?
It's on page 7 of your agenda. Seeing as we just passed to prohibit it.
I still don't have a second. Okay, I have a second. Discussion on this? Do you want to elaborate, Councilor Rapcorsetti?
Well, since we just struck it in the previous one, it doesn't have to be defined as being prohibited in the overall article. Gotcha? Got it?
This would be accurate?
So I believe, and I'll look at Ruth to clarify, but I believe what we have here is sort of a two amendment motion to achieve moving corrugated metal as a sort of limited material to a prohibited material. So the prior motion that passed was to prohibit it. This would kind of eliminate the follow-on section and just kind of clean up the section.
Thank you for the clarification. I have a second. All those in favor of this proposed amendment? Any opposed? Abstentions? All right. We're getting there.
Getting there. Under section 1 of 2019-032 and subsection 240-25E5A, screening, I move to add dumpsters to the first sentence after the phrase utility buildings.
Any discussion? All those in favor of this proposed amendment? And that looks unanimous. Any abstentions? Nope. Okay.
And I have one under section 1 of 2019-032 and subsection 240-25F definitions. I move to strike in their entirety the definition for self-storage facility.
And we've already eliminated that.
So, well, it has to be eliminated from the definition.
Yes. I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of this proposed amendment? And that too is unanimous. We're good? All right. Good, nice, very nice work. Anyone else on the overall item? Councilor Hebert?
Thank you, Mr. President. I realize that Councilor Rapcorsetti did an awesome amount of work here, and thank you for doing that, Jessica. I just want to double check. Did anyone know anyone that was missed Because I thought at one point you jumped around. I'm just concerned, I don't want after the fact.
I did not act on the caliper because I heard the caliper of the trees required.
Okay.
Because I heard in public comment the cost of large caliper trees, and so I didn't act on that.
So that was the only one you skipped? And,
Yes.
And you did that
And one of them
intentionally?
was a repeated one, so.
So that was, thank you. I just didn't want anything to be overlooked. Thank
Well,
you.
I owe my help.
She did
My
exactly
work.
what she meant to do.
Yeah, right.
Councilor Flores?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a point of information. On Section B, where it talks about principal permitted uses, number 11, educational institutions, and then we define on page 8, educational institutions as being K-12 or post-secondary. I would like to insert in front of K-12, pre-K-12. So if someone wanted to offer a pre-K school, they could. Is that okay to do?
I think you're still within, you could make the amendment because you're speaking to it, so you can make the amendment.
So I would like to amend the definition of educational institutions to be pre-K-12 or post-secondary levels.
Okay, I have a second. Any discussion on this proposed amendment? Councilor Hebert?
Thank you. Would that include any trade? For instance, there is a plumbing
Yes.
school. So
Yeah,
the trade still stays?
Everything
no-
stays
no
the
change.
same. That's post-secondary. This strictly is early childhood education, which is the pre-K.
Awesome. Thanks.
Anyone else?
It's the definition on page 8 of our agenda, where it speaks to educational institutions, and we're talking right now, as written, K-12, all post-secondary levels. We're going to insert the word pre, so it includes early childhood education and preschools.
Any other discussion on this proposed amendment? Anyone want to move the question? All right, I have a second. All right, all those in favor of this proposed amendment? And that is unanimous, and Councilor Collum has returned. Any other discussion on the overall item? Councilor Neary.
I just want to say, regardless of how this vote comes down, I am obviously for it. But the give and take between all of the councilors, the public, the town staff, it's a lot of work, and I think this process is what really makes it work and makes it good. Right down to the amendments, many of them. But I'd like to bring it to a vote, and I hope that it's successful. It's time that we move forward with this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Hebert?
Thank you. So, following up on Councilor Neary's comment, I had a lot of problems with this going, especially at last council meeting, but I do feel like the public has spoken. I feel like the planning board got involved. I feel like all the amendments were listened to and thought through. So I feel a lot more comfortable about this than I did a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
Councilor Rappacetti?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the planning board and Elizabeth Jenkins, her staff, and also Ruth Weil for assisting throughout this process.
Anyone else? Councilor Flores?
Yeah, I want to echo Councilor Rapgrassetti's comments as she just mentioned, but also want to commend the subcommittee of the town council that spent really endless hours in putting this together. Even though we have not agreed on every item specifically, I think the spirit of what the initial intention of that committee was meant to be has been fulfilled.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Collum?
I think it's important to point out that subcommittees of the town council come forward with recommendations to the town council, and it's here where the ball gets kicked around for the final game. And so I just wanted to point out the process, because I know when these things go into committee, people start freaking out that the decisions have been made, and they can't be made without all of us voting. And that's the beauty of the system. So thank you for showing up and showing your concerns. I appreciate it, and we move forward with the map next time. Thank you.
Councilor Wallace? All those in favor of moving the question? That's unanimous. This is item 2019-032. This is a roll call vote, 2/3 required. Looking for all those in favor as amended.
Counselors, Bender.
Yes.
Cullum.
Yes.
Dagwan.
Yes.
Flores.
Yes.
Rapcorsetti.
No.
Hebert.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnepp.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Tinsley. Oops. Wallace.
Yes.
Passes.
All right, thank you very much. Good work, everybody. We're going to move right on. Councilor Rapcorsetti, did you want to read item 2019-051, please?
Mr. President, I'd like
Yes.
to bifurcate one of the committees in this section. Is this the time to do it or not?
We have to read the item in first,
Okay.
and then you
Okay, this is item 2019-051, appointments to a board, committee, or commission. Resolved that the town council appoints the following individuals to a multiple-member board, committee, or commission. Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission, Elizabeth Young from an alternate position to a full member to a term expiring 6/30/2019. Cecilia Carey, Hyannis, as an alternate member to a term expiring 6/30/2019. Licensing Authority, David Hirsch, Centerville, as an associate member to a term expiring 6/30/2019. Old Kings Highway Historic District Commission, Elizabeth McCarthy, Barnstable, as an alternate member to a term expiring 6/30/2019. And Planning Board, Walter Watson, Marston's Mills, as a regular member to a term expiring 6/30/2019.
Councilor Dagwan?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to bifurcate the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission, Elizabeth Young as a full member and Cecilia Carey as an alternate member. I'm, as a member of the Appointments Committee, I'm very concerned about the way the committee is functioning, and I'm concerned about putting new people on right now to a committee that seems to be somewhat toxic. I have received quite a few calls, I don't know about other committee members, concerned about this particular committee. There seem to be undertones of classism, I think favoritism, racism, superiority, inferiority. And I think that these committees need to understand that there is a conduct, a code of conduct. They represent us. This council, they also represent the town. And I don't know if anyone's been watching those meetings, but they have been a little disturbing, this particular group. And I'm hoping that the new membership will have an opportunity to meet with this group. I know when I was town council president, we had a similar situation, and it does need to be clarified. I brought the committee in, but I didn't bring the whole committee in. I brought everybody in separately so I could hear their concerns and really reiterate that, you know, they do represent us. And when you see the kind of behavior that's occurring, and I'm not pointing fingers at any of the candidates that are applying right now, this committee is just not functioning. And I would not like to move forward on, and I'm asking the council as well, not to move forward on this particular group until a future time. And there's no rush to put anybody in those positions right now.
Is there a second to bifurcate?
Could I get a point of clarification, Mr. President?
Yep.
When we talk about bifurcation, it's to pull them out of the pack, and we could vote on them usually tonight or directly after the first vote or whatever's appropriate. I haven't heard a date certain. Are we talking about voting on them independently after the vote of the package goes through? Are we talking a date certain? Are we talking about tabling their nominations?
I'd like to put a date forward. I don't want to vote on it tonight. I just think that there's some issues there. So I would like to see that we not vote on this tonight. And
So
put-
are you trying to
maybe-
bifurcate it for a later meeting?
Yes.
Right, well, you need to state, you should state
Pick
that
the date.
clearly then.
Okay, then our next meeting will be
January 3rd is our next meeting.
January 3rd, then let's move it to January 3rd.
We have a second. Is there any council discussion on bifurcating?
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yeah, first of all, we need to bifurcate them individually. And I believe that we need to move them to the meeting in January 17th rather than the 3rd. I think it'll give us more time to look at each individual person and the circumstances that exist.
We don't have to do it individually. You can take it out for the committee as a group. It doesn't have
There
to
may be an issue with one that doesn't exist for the other.
Well,
That's
we-
why I'd like to bifurcate individually.
Okay. Any other councilors? Because we're dealing with the proposed bifurcation right now on the table. Councilor Cullum?
I don't support the bifurcation. I think that we have two qualified people that deserve to be reviewed and voted for tonight or against tonight. I think the problems within the committee will not benefit from a 2-week or a 4-week recess from addressing this. I think the thing to do is to move forward with a swift hand, teach the code of conduct, and rectify the committee. That's my point of view. As a parent, that's my point of view. As a town councilor, that's also my point of view. Thank you.
Councilor Rapcasetti?
I would agree with Counselor Cullum. I don't think bifurcating and delaying this is going to help anybody, least of all the committee. And the problem, the inherent problems on that committee are with the serving members and some personalities. And I would agree with Counselor Dagwan that perhaps the president should call in the members individually and have words with them and ferret out the issues. But I think we should just continue and vote for. And one of the candidates has stayed through this entire proceeding, and I'd hate to see her go home disappointed.
Anyone else? Councilor Hebert?
I would strongly agree with Councilor Rapasetti's comments, and again, one of the members is here in the room and is an outstanding candidate, and I would like to be that her Christmas present. So I would like us to vote for it today and not separate the group. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone want to move the question? Second. Oh.
Yeah, I'd like to respond. I mean, I have nothing against the candidates right now. I think this is a committee that really needs to be looked at. As we said, as Councilor Wallace said, I mean, we still can move people forward on the 17th. Putting new people on this committee right now with the kind of tension that's there is not going to help. And so I think the others, all of them need to be addressed and spoken to. As I said, I'm a member of the Appointments Committee. I appointed many of these people to the committee, and I appointed these individuals to the committee as well. But I feel what has transpired over the last week or so that I would like to look into it a little with a little more depth. I want to feel comfortable about putting new people on a committee that are having some serious issues. And being a person of color, when I get messages from someone that says you're concerned about racial issues, we shouldn't be taking this stuff so lightly. We should take it seriously. And that's not saying that somebody is racist or has done something, but I think we need to look into it. And we need to, and not, the racial part issue isn't the biggest thing for me. It's more so the code of conduct, people feeling that they're more inferior than others, making candidates who volunteer feel as though they're not worthy. I think it's not going to harm any of us to take the time as a council. These committees are under us. They represent us, and when you have these kind of undertones, you really need to take the time to look at it. And I'm not, I couldn't tonight vote in favor of this group right now, this committee right now, and its new appointees. Although, as I said, I'm on the appointments committee. I see there are fine candidates, but there are issues. And we really need to resolve the issues before we bring new people and put them on this Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission.
Thank you. I already moved the question, but I want to give Councilor Dagwon the courtesy of speaking to it again. So all those in I've already moved the question.
Could we repeat the question, Mr. President? This is just about bifurcating. This isn't actually moving 219-051, am I correct?
Right, this is just about bifurcation. So all those in favor of bifurcating Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission from this item? All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the bifurcation does not pass. So now we're back to item 2019-051, appointments to a board, committee, and commission as written. All those in favor of this item? All those opposed? Any abstentions? I don't think she voted. Okay. All right, it passes. Congratulations. Merry Christmas. Councilor Wallace, could you please read item 2019-056, please?
Certainly, Mr. President. Thank you. This is old business that may be acted upon. Item number 2019-056, amendment to the Administrative Code to designate members of the Infrastructure and Energy Commission as special municipal employees and to remove from the existing special municipal employee designation curtain certain multiple member bodies that no longer exist, as written.
Second, we have our town attorney to give us the briefest explanation possible.
I have a whole book. It's a very complicated issue.
Oh, God.
Good evening again. Ruth Weil, town attorney. As you know, the Conflict of Interest Law, Chapter 268A, covers all municipal officials and employees, whether elected or appointed, paid or unpaid, full-time or part-time. However, there's two sections. Section 17, which deals with agency, which would allow special municipal employees to appear before other boards. For example, if a lawyer's on a ZBA, he could appear before the planning board. If that individual was not designated as special, they would be precluded from appearing before any board. So this is a body that determines whether a body is a special municipal employee. The members of that body are special municipal employees. It's under Chapter 241, Attachment 1 of the Code. There have been several committees that have been eliminated, and a new committee created, the Infrastructure and Energy Committee. So this is really basically housekeeping. We're eliminating a number of committees that no longer exist, and we're just adding to the list under the code the Infrastructure and Energy Committee.
Any council questions or discussion on this? Have a second? All those in favor of moving the question? That's unanimous. This is item 2019-056. All those in favor of this item? Any opposed? Abstentions? Any not paying attention? All right. Councilor Hebert, could you please read item 2019-058 and open the public hearing, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. May open for public hearing item number 2019-058, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $850,000 for the Hyannis West Elementary School roof truss system.
Do I have a second? And I believe we have Dave Kenyak, our Director of School Facilities here. Thanks for waiting, Dave. Good to see you.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of council. Dave Kenyak, Director of Facilities, Barnstable Public Schools. I'm here tonight. If you recall, back earlier this year, we came to you on about June 4th this past year. We had noticed a problem at Hyannis West Elementary School. We noticed some deflection in some trusses in the cafeteria area. Under some investigation, we found that 2 had failed. We immediately supported those and secured that structure. We came to you for some emergency funding and explained to you that we were going to go ahead and do a full evaluation of the entire building. We've completed that evaluation. We've looked at all the trusses in the cafeteria area, determined that 6 more trusses need complete rebuild. We've rebuilt 2 of them as mock-ups, and 6 are remaining. Plus, we have some additional work to do in the kitchen area and over the stage. The rest of the building was also inspected and found to be, this structure is fine. So we are asking tonight for a reappropriation of $850,000 from another capital project, the community charter school, to go ahead and be able to solicit bids and get the rest of these repairs done on this building.
Thank you, Dave. And this is a public hearing, so if any members of the public wish to speak, please come forward. Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? All those in favor of closing the public hearing? That's unanimous. Council discussion on this item? Vice President Crocker?
Good evening. How are you, David?
Fine.
I was lucky enough to enter the building in August when the problem was first found. David brought it to our attention. Mark, our manager, was kind enough to invite me to do the walkthrough because I'm in the construction field. I voiced a big concern about what it is we were trying to accomplish. How do we design it for longevity? How much building life is left in the facility? How do we get open for September? How do we? And I have to tell you, David and his crew stepped up on every instance, but I also have to tell you, they also recognized that the damage was far worse than we had first anticipated. There was cracks in the original structure, but when we started pulling some of the members out and moving around, it was a much worse situation than we have. I think the fix is the correct fix. I think it's not an inexpensive fix, but I also know the investment we've made over there with the portable classrooms and the other issues. This is not a school that's going anywhere out of our control in any short measure, and this is a key room, as you can imagine, being both over the kitchen and over the auditorium or the cafeteria side of it, where they also have their stage. Key facility, took every length and step to make sure the repair is done properly, and I'll be supporting it.
Councilor Flores?
Dave, thanks for the presentation. Just curious, if and when this does pass, when does the construction begin? How does it impact the building? How does it impact the teaching, learning process, classrooms, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, well, right now, the cafeteria has been closed this school year. We're using the gym as a cafeteria area, and we've rented 2 portable trailers. I hate to say that word, but they're
That's what they are.
But they're outside, and we're using those for light assembly and physical ed. So the phys ed teacher takes the kids outside whenever she can. If it's rainy and too cold, they use the trailers for yoga and light exercise. So that's how we've been managing the activities. So there's been no disruption of normal activities at the school. We received this appropriation. In 30 days, we'll be able to go out to bid. The specs will be ready at that point, and we hope to actually award a contract around the middle of February. Need probably about a month to mobilize. There's some fabrication that's involved in retrofitting these trusses, so we would hope to have a work start around the middle of March, and we'd be ready for next school year. Get this done. We're going to replace the ceiling and do a lot of other work while we're in there. We've got it all down anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All those in favor of moving the question? That's unanimous. This is item 2019-058, and this is a roll call vote.
Counselors, excuse me. Crocker,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Dagwan,
Yes.
Flores.
Yes.
Rapcorsetti.
Yes.
Hebert.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnepp.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
Biedenbender.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night. All right. Counselor Flores, could you please read item 2019-059 and open the public hearing, please?
Yes, this is old business, public hearing requiring a roll call, 2/3 vote, item 2019-059, appropriation and loan order in the amount of $571,000 for the Mary Dunn Well Number 4 reactivation project as written.
All right, we have our Director of Public Works, Dan Santos, here. Welcome, Dan.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you and your families. So this is an appropriation request from the Water Supply Division, and what we're seeking is $571,000 to reestablish the Mary Dunn 4 well. And the Mary Dunn 4 well is one of 4 wells in the Mary Dunn system, which was shut down many years ago by the DEP, primarily because it was influenced by surface water. There's a nearby pond, so they wouldn't allow that well to be continued. This is part of a multi-pronged approach. As you know, we've been dealing with this issue since 2015 with emerging contaminants, with PFASs, and the impact that's caused to our system. In fact, over time, we've had to shut down 6 of our 10 active wells as a result of this. So this is one phase of getting our system back up to where we have adequate supply of water, and primarily in the short term, to wean us off the very expensive water that we're buying from the town of Yarmouth. So what we're doing is reestablishing this well. We're drilling a new well, creating a new pump station for the well. We'll be using the treatment plant that's existing at Mary Dunn to treat this water, and this is a very quick and cost-effective means of getting us additional water. The time frame is this would be online before the summer of 2020, a little over a year from now, well, about a year and a half from now, and at a significantly lower cost than a new well. A new well and permitting time frame is $4 to $6 million and 5 to 7 years. We can get this done, obviously, in a very, very short order and be able to use that water very quickly. The project is fully designed, fully permitted, and shovel-ready, and it will make no operating budget impacts to our current year's budget, and we will be paying for this with debt service, or debt, and be paying the debt service beginning with the FY20 budget, operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. We like shovel-ready, as you know. This is a public hearing, so any members of the public wish to speak, please come forward. Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? All those in favor of closing the public hearing? And that's unanimous. Council discussion on this item? Councilor Flores?
I'm just curious then, are there any state or federal monies available to help offset the cost to the town because of an emergency kind of situation?
There may be, and so we have been working with the state with the SRF program, and we're working with them right now to make sure that this project is eligible for any monies that might become available. And in particular, the best part of that is if they do principal forgiveness, where they actually give us funds. And hopefully that will occur, but we'll position ourselves for that.
Is there a time frame for that decision?
We're talking to them right now, so I don't, and that may come a couple of years down the road. That's possible, and they just, forgive a certain amount of the debt, so we're paying it off sooner.
Thank you.
Councilor Rappacetti?
I see that you're undertaking an annual rates study. How is this going to affect the rates going forward?
Well, this gets tied into that rate analysis, and particularly basically with the debt service and what we need for our operating budget, and we're working on that right now. In fact, just this week, we had our meeting with the Hyannis Water Board and with the consultant that does the rate study, and Mark Milne, going through some of that information. But that would be coming forth in the spring.
Okay.
Anyone else? Councilor Hebert?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mark, Dan, the first thing, SRF stands for what?
State Revolving Fund.
Okay, awesome. So I think that when it comes to our water again, there's almost no bigger obligation on our part to make sure that our water is available and the best that we can possibly. And so when we even look at the cost, when you think of the cost of bottled water that has almost no inspection, so your task is mammoth, but you've always been on top of it. You and the town manager have done a great job of that, so I thank you from the bottom of my heart that I know that you're doing the very best for us, and I think that anytime that we have the ability to reactivate and to keep our system at maximum capacity, I think we're going in the right direction, so thank you very much.
And thank you, Councilor. And given what you've said, I'd like to recognize Hans Kaiser, who's the division supervisor, who's actually been doing the lion's share of all this work and daily for the last 3 years, keeping things as good as they can be and working with the state.
Councilor Neary.
Yeah, Mr. Santos, thank you, Mr. President. Just as a question, the well was shut down in 16, obviously due to the condition of the water that was coming out of it.
This
and
well,
the surrounding ponds.
This well was actually shut down, what year? Do you recall, Hans? 1999. So it's been down for a long way. So we looked at this, and there's one at Straightway as well that was shut down years ago. It's the quickest way to get, without having to re-permit and go through that multi-year process, the permitting is much quicker because it's already been permitted once. And it's just reestablishing that relationship with DEP. So it made a lot of sense to proceed this way.
So I understand that. So now that there's been new testing, and the water that's coming out of this well, it's at a quality level that is obviously above standard, or will it require the filtration or the treatment, process of part of things?
Well, because it's in the area of the Fire Training Academy and it's going into the manifold in that system, it's going to be run through the treatment system. So if it does happen to get the PFAS in it from the Fire Training Academy, it will be removed.
Thank you.
Councilor Flores.
Just a quick question. As this moves forward and we re-drill an old well and repair it, eventually will that eliminate the need to continue to buy the water from Yarmouth?
Not just this one well, but our program moving ahead with getting the Marwell field treatment system up and running, which you provided appropriation for. So when all of those things are built and put in place, we will be completely off of Yarmouth water.
And that's a 2 to 3 year time frame, probably?
And hopefully in June, July of 2020.
2020. Thank you.
Vice President Crocker.
And you guys do a great job.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for taking the time to discuss this with me this week. Also, I appreciate it. And Hans, you're doing a great job over there. This is not a high-volume well. This is a well of opportunity. We have infrastructure going there and infrastructure that can go from there over to the filtration that's already in place. Anything we do, we have to think of it as a short-term fix, and we have to think about keeping it as portable as possible in case we reorganize, as we hope to when we get into wildlife and game and fishes area. So this is a great resolve. The permits to get a well are well over $1 million. So we're talking about turning something on. And don't worry that it's been shut off since '99. Nothing gets open unless all the testing is clear and clean. So there's a process for cleaning the pipes, getting everything running again, and bringing everything to the good standard that is required on a day-to-day operation of the facility. Thank you very much. Great idea. I applaud the effort.
Anyone else?
Move the question.
Have a second. All those in favor of moving the question? That's unanimous. This item 2019-059, it is a roll call vote.
Councilors Cullum,
Yes.
Dagwan. Flores.
Yes.
Rapcrissetti.
Yes.
Hebert.
Yes.
Levesque.
Yes.
Neary.
Yes.
Schnepp.
Yes.
Steinhilber.
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
Biedenbender.
Yes.
And Crocker.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Great. Thank you very much, Dan and Hans. Good to see you. All right. Councilor Levesque, could you please read item 2019-060, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is new business, may be acted upon. Item number 2019-060, acceptance of a fiscal year 2019 Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program STEP grant in the amount of $16,159 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Office of Grant and Research, Highway Safety Division, as written.
I have a second. We have Chief Sonneman with us here tonight to go through these three grants. Welcome. Good to see you.
Mr. President, members of the council, good evening. Chief Sonneban from the Barnstable Police Department, here to speak about item number 2019-060, the acceptance of fiscal year 2019 Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program STEP grant in the amount of $16,159. The Barnstable Police Department applied for this grant back in October of 2018. Originally, it was for the amount of $55,000. We did receive the award of the grant. Right now, the amount is $16,159, but frequently these amounts get increased throughout the life of the grant, so it could end up at the $55,000 or it may stay at the $16,159. But right now we have the $16,159, and the concept of the grant is to allow high visibility, high enforcement patrols in various areas around town. There's 10 areas that are specified within the body of the grant to get out there and increase high visibility traffic enforcement through use of marked units and traffic force patrol. There are a total of 16 departments in the Commonwealth that have a grant like this. The analysis, the acceptance of this grant will assist the police department in targeting specific traffic intersections that have had a history of serious and/or excessive traffic accidents. The goals set in our grant application are to decrease fatalities 100%. We had 4 in 2018. We want to decrease that to 0 by 2019. We also want to decrease inattention crashes by about 50%, from 314 in 2018 to 157 in 2019. And also to increase seatbelt use 50%, from 99 crashes where operators and occupants were not wearing any seatbelts in 2018 to about 50 in 2019. There are several intersections that are listed within the body of the grant where most of this traffic enforcement will take place. The fiscal impact of this is there's no required match, and all the overtime costs that the police department will incur will be reimbursed by the grant.
Great, thank you, Chief. Any council discussion on this item? Yeah, motion to move the question. Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor of moving the question? All right, this is item 2019-060. All those in favor of this item? And that is unanimous. Councilor Schnapp, could you please read item 2019-061, please?
Yes, this is new business that may be acted upon. Item 2019-061, acceptance of a fiscal year 2019 traffic enforcement grant in the amount of $12,000 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Office of Grant and Research, Highway Safety Division.
A second. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. Once again, it's Chief Sonneban. I'm here to speak about 2019-061. In October of 2018, the Barnstable Police Department applied for and was awarded the 2019 Traffic Enforcement Grant in the amount of $12,000 from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. Right now, there's been $2,310 awarded to the department, but we expect that could be raised up to $12,000 throughout the life of the grant. The initial funding will enable the Traffic Division to participate in the first of 4 traffic mobilizations throughout the year, under such items as winter impaired driving focus. A second motivation would be distracted driving. A third mobilization would be occupant protection, click it or ticket type programs. And the fourth would be conducted during the summer, a summer impaired driving focus. The grant details $6,600 of this grant is awarded and allocated to traffic enforcement, and $5,400 is allocated to the purchase of traffic-related equipment such as a PBT, portable breath analyzer, a tint meter, fatal vision alcohol program kit for education, a radar gun, and a LiDAR gun. Acceptance of this grant will assist the department in continuance of these important traffic safety mobilizations and also enable the department to purchase traffic-related tools and items. The fiscal impact, there is no match required on behalf of the town, and the department will be reimbursed for expenses. As we receive the funds, we will expend the funds. We will not expend any funds that we have not yet received.
Great, thank you. Any council discussion on this item? Vice President Crocker?
Could you refresh my memory on what the LiDAR gun is? Is that the plate reader?
It's laser. So it shoots a laser, measures the speed of the vehicle oncoming. Instead of using a radar, which is radar waves, it uses a light beam to measure the speed of the vehicle.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Move the question. Second. I have a second. All those in favor of moving the question? All right, this is item 2019-061. All those in favor of this item? And that is unanimous. Councilor Dagwan, could you please read item 2019-062, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Item 2019-062, acceptance of a fiscal year 2019 local law enforcement equipment and technology grant in the amount of $20,000 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. This may be acted upon.
Have a second. Go ahead, Chief.
Once again, Chief Sonneman, item number 2019-062. This is the acceptance of fiscal year 2019 local law enforcement equipment technology grant in the amount of $20,000. The police department applied for this back in October. We were awarded this grant in the amount of $20,000. The purpose of this grant would be to purchase a automatic license plate reader, an ALPR device for use by the police department as an investigatory tool. The equipment itself cost $26,000. We'd use $20,000 of grant money and $6,000 of forfeiture money to purchase this, so this would not come out of our active budget. The purpose of the license plate reader, basically, it's a passive device. It's mounted. It's stationary. It's not on a vehicle. It reads traffic as it goes by, and if there's bolos out for different vehicles or people we might be looking for, vehicles specifically we're looking for during investigations, it'll let us know if that vehicle passes by the license plate reader and notifies the police department. The fiscal impact of this is, as I said, $26,000 is the cost of the ALPR, $20,000 of which is covered through the grant, and the remaining $6,000 will be funded through state forfeiture funds.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Rep Rossetti.
Thank you, Chief. I want to thank Ann Spillane, and I'm glad you gave her the night off.
Yeah, she does. She gets all this stuff done. She does a great job, and I'm hoping she's enjoying her night off tonight.
Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor of moving the question? All right, this is item 2019-062. All those in favor of this item? And that is unanimous. Thank you, Chief.
Good evening. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Councilor Biedenbender, could you please read item 2019-063 and refer to a public hearing on January 3rd, 2019, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This is new business to refer to public hearing on January 3rd, 2019. This is item number 2019-063, appropriation order of $100,000 in community preservation funds for community housing creation, Seashore Homes, Inc., at 185 Ridgewood Avenue in Hyannis, as written.
Have a second. All those in favor of referring item 2019-063 to a public hearing on January 3rd, 2019? And that is unanimous. Councilor Neary, could you please read item 2019-064 and refer to the planning board, please?
This is new business to be referred to the planning board. Item number 2019-064, to amend zoning ordinance Article 3, District Regulations, subsection 240-39K, signs in the shopping center redevelopment overlay district, or SCROD, as written.
I have a second. All those in favor of referring item 2019-064 to the planning board? And that is unanimous. Councilor Cullum, could you please read item 2019-065 and refer to a public hearing on January 17th, 2019, please?
Yes, I'd like to read into the record 2019-065, appropriation and transfer order in the amount of $38,000, community preservation funds for acquisition of conservation restriction 5.92 acres plus or minus 0 Bumps River Road, Marston's Mills, map 168, parcel 009, referring it to a public hearing on 1/17/19. Thank you.
I have a second. All those in favor of referring item 2019-065 to a public hearing on January 17th, 2019? And that is unanimous. All right. All right, so we got through old business and new business. Before we do election of officers, I just wanted to take up the town council calendar of 2019, which is in everybody's folder. Just see if I can get a motion to approve the 2019 town council calendar. I have a second? Okay. All those in favor of the town council calendar of meetings for 2019? And that is unanimous. Any abstentions? Okay. Okay. Yep.
Could I just, on the issue of the first meeting of the new year, on the 3rd of January, I personally will not be here, but I'm asking if many others are we in jeopardy of not having a quorum that's, no? Okay, fine, thank you very much.
All right, so at this point, I'm going to turn things over to the town clerk for the election of the 2019 officers.
If I may, Mr. President, before we do that, I think there's an officer we need to thank for his service during our last 2 years, and that's my good friend and our president, Eric Steinhelber. I have served in the past as a vice president, and I've had 2 years to serve under Eric as my second time in the vice presidency. And I have to tell you, I learned more this time than ever before. I felt as though I was part of the process more than ever before. I thought that everyone's voice had a place to be heard. And I was grateful for the leadership he showed during that time. And I just think the amount of time that goes into these things too have to be recognized, because here's a man who has a young family, switching jobs from time to time, as we all do, has battled a few illnesses that he doesn't talk about, and has never missed a single meeting that I can think of, has never not been there for a phone call. And I can tell you, I've had the opportunity to talk to him weekends, weeknights. He's made himself very available to me. So I have to tell you that I'm very proud of the time we spent together. I'm proud of his accomplishments. And I think he was someone that I learned a great deal from, and I was grateful to be under him. With that in mind, I felt like Minnie Pearl. I was carrying this around with tags, and I was trying to hide the tags the whole time. So this is to help him get the heck out of the office fast. So he's got a lot of papers in there. Hopefully he can open it up and make it work. But when he gets home, I hope he gets a chance to open something else up and make it work. I'm very grateful for the time we spent together, and thank you for your dedication to our town.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Shop local, Main Street Hyannis.
That's right. Well, I'll just want to thank you for that. It's certainly been an honor to serve as president these last 2 years with this council in the previous iteration. You know, I grew up in this town, so everything means a lot to me here in town. I know you did as well. I was in this room when I was in high school, never thinking I'd be actually sitting up here, but I had to come for American government and watch, a boring town council meeting. So I've been out there too. But it's really been a pleasure serving with this council, and with you as vice president and working with town manager Mark Ells. Really in the last couple of years, we've really moved on some really large items, things really that maybe previous councils just maybe didn't have the stomach to kind of take up. But we see the challenges, we're all embracing it together, and I have no doubt that going forward, with your leadership, if elected tonight, and with town manager Mark Ells and all of us, we'll continue to move the important issues of the day forward. But it's really truly been an honor, and I will miss it in some respects, but I'm looking forward to continuing on with the council, and thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, moving on, the town clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start the election of officers for the Barnstable Town Council year of 2019. So I only have one nominee for president, but I'm willing to ask you, Jim, if you'd like to say a few words about being president, or if you want us to just go to the vote. It's up to you.
Well, a good politician won't refuse the mic, so I must take the chance. I've had a great eye-opening experience the last 2 years with Eric. I understand that we have a dedicated professional staff that starts with our manager and goes throughout his core of professionals, and there's no stopping us. We're supposed to be the hub of Cape Cod. We will be the hub of Cape Cod. There's no stopping us as 13. We don't have to agree on everything, but we have to talk through, tackle our issues, and proceed. and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to take the seat. As I said, I've served vice presidents in the past. I have never run for the president's office, so I'm grateful to have this opportunity at this time, and I will do my utmost best to make us all proud and serve the people of Barnstable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So when I call your name, you have to tell me who you're voting for. It's the way it works. Beat and Bender.
Jim Crocker.
James Crocker.
Jim Crocker.
Cullum.
Jim Crocker.
Dagwan.
James Crocker.
Flores.
Jim Crocker.
Rapcrossetti.
James Crocker.
Hebert.
James Crocker.
Levesque.
James Crocker.
Neary.
James Crocker.
Schnepp.
James Crocker.
Steinhilber.
Vice President James Crocker.
And Wallace.
James Crocker.
That's unanimous for you, Jim. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Okay, so now it's the time for our Office of Vice President. We have two nominees. They are Deborah Dagwan and John Flores. Do either of the candidates wish to make a statement at this time?
Yes, I'd like to withdraw my name.
Thank you. John?
Well, having just run for state senate, I'm not going to let the opportunity to not use the microphone when it's given to me. First, I want to thank and respect Councilor Dagwan for taking that step. I think it was humbling, as well as I really respect and appreciate that. When I thought about putting my name into the running, I really tried to reflect what I've done all along in my entire professional as well as political career. And I know sometimes people think I overuse the word transparency, but everybody at this dais tonight wants to be as transparent as possible as we move town government forward. And as I think about it, I've always said that the three most important issues to me have always been transparency, integrity, and preservation. I've lived those words, I've modeled those words, and as I hope the next vice president of the Barnstable Town Council, I will be able to continue in that tradition. At the same time, one thing I learned early on in my career is to not only be a good listener, but when you listen, you also have to hear. And I want everyone on the Town Council to know that not only will I listen to every issue, every concern, every idea, but I'll also hear them. I'll take them to heart and work very closely with our new Town Council President, James Crocker, and trying to make sure that as we move the town forward, we're doing it in the best interests of the entire community. And although all of us sitting up here, for all intents and purposes, represent individual precincts, I think at the end of the day, we all know that we really represent the entire community of Barnstable. We all have our pet projects that we want to see happen within our own particular precincts, but when push comes to shove, this is a team that really pulls together and does what is in the best interests of the entire citizenry of the town, whether it be the school department, whether it be town government in general. I'm proud to not only be a town councilor, but will be proud to take on the position of vice president if this council deems I'm worthy of it. So I ask for your vote. I will work cooperatively with everybody, and I'll just close by saying, I've worked pretty much my entire life in the public sector and in the business world, having worked in other public communities with former town managers, deputy managers, directors of finance, and I can honestly say, since becoming so involved in town government here in Barnstable, I don't think there is a finer team in all of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, if not the country, in terms of the types of leadership that not only everybody at this dais exhibits, but also the day-to-day folks. Town manager Mark Ells, deputy manager Claiborne, our director of finance Mark Milne, just top quality folks that get the job done and give us the facts and figures that we need, the legal opinions that Ruth Wild gives us in order to make really good, cogent decisions to move this community forward. So with all of that being said, I'll end with where I began. It's all about transparency, integrity, and preservation. That's what I'm going to bring to the table, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, John. All right, I think we can start the voting now, so please tell me who you're voting for. James Crocker.
John Flores.
Colin?
John Flores.
Deborah? Flores?
John Flores.
Rapacetti?
John Flores.
Hebert?
John Flores.
Levesque?
John Flores.
Neary?
John Flores.
Schnepp?
John Flores.
Steinhilber?
John Flores.
Wallace?
John G. Flores.
Beatenbetter?
John Flores.
And that's unanimous. So I would like to say congratulations to presidents and vice presidents. My job is done.
Motion to adjourn.
And our work begins.
I got a first and a second. All those in favor of adjournment? Aye, thank you, and good night.
Good night.